Focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon Howse.
And good evening. Welcome to the broadcast. On this Thursday night, March 12th, 2026, we have two terrorist attacks in America today. One in Michigan at a synagogue, the other at Old Dominion University in Virginia. Both appear to be tied right back to Islam. And now also, as we reported last night, the FBI is warning about a potential drone attack, drone swarms on California. Again, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, Anni Cyrus and I played a video of the IRGC releasing footage of them releasing drones and coming in on cardboard cutouts of human beings, firing on them and then crashing into them. And we began to warn about such threats, maybe coming from Mexico into America, as the cartels are said to be working with some of the Islamic groups as well. So is this really a distraction from the real threat? In other words, here's the report. So when something happens, well, we tried telling you. I said to my wife today, why are they worrying about swarms coming in from the coast, from off a ship out in the ocean? Why would they not warn, hey, we also have the potential for them to actually happen in America, the inside the border, because we think they're already here, because we had open borders under Joe Biden. I don't know. The whole thing seems a little fishy. Why are they doing this now? And of course, notice the uptick in the terrorist attacks as we told everybody that, right? We said, look, when they go after Iran, they're going to let these terror cells out. And this is indeed happening. And there is no such thing as a lone gunman, a lone wolf, okay? There's no such thing. Someone inspired them, trained them, encouraged them. They didn't. No man is an island, okay? There's no such thing as a lone wolf terrorist attack. Joining me now is going to be Anni Cyrus, and then we're going to have join us tonight, Courtenay Turner. We're going to talk more tonight about Alexander Dugin and his infiltration of the MAGA movement. I'm going to play a video I think will get Annie's blood boiling. I played it on radio today at 1 o'clock. So I've talked about Alexander Dugin on radio today at 1 o'clock. I've talked about him tonight in my commentary in the Worldview Report, and we're going to talk about him more tonight because this is such an important topic. So Courtenay Turner coming up. Be sure to tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, Truth Social. Tell everybody you know, because we're going to tell you some stuff. MAGA has been infiltrated, and yes, the good old Putin's brain, as he's called, Putin's ideological framework and architect, Alexander Dugin, is praising people like Tucker Carlson and Jackson Hinkle and Candace Owens. You wonder why MAGA seems to have gotten off track? It's because it's been infiltrated. We're going to get into that tonight. Tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, Truth Social, and so much more. I am getting better. Still got a ways to go. This finger is still numb. This finger's not numb anymore. This finger's not so numb anymore. This one still is. C6, C7 issues. But keep praying for me. Yep, pain going down the arms like ridiculous. Hard to sleep at night. And I'm getting so many texts and emails from people that have been through this. Here's one dear lady. She wrote, "Hi, Melissa. I know exactly what Brandon's going through right now. I, too, have been dealing with C6 and C7 bulging disc with pinched nerve." Hello. We're both got the same thing. After dealing with it for 10 plus months, what? Wait a minute. I don't want to hear that. I finally got steroid injection on 2/26. I did steroids for a while, but it was keeping me awake. It has helped quite a bit, and I can now sleep. But I still have stiffness in my hands and numbness, tingling in the tips of my fingers. Yep, got that. And pointing finger on my left hand. Yep, right here. Left hand, too. But I'm so very grateful I can sleep. Well, I'm happy for you. I can't. This is huge. I had tried the chiropractor and cold laser therapy for months, many months, with no success before my chiropractor suggested I see a pain specialist. This is who did the cervical steroid epidural injection. That night I could sleep. My knee even improved. I've been taking the Bella Grace, Numi, Gatatonic constantly for almost a year. As you and Brandon, as I said tonight, the C6 and C7 area of the back doesn't usually hurt. Yeah, it doesn't usually hurt right here either, but it does in other places. But the shoulders, the elbows, the hands, the tingling of the fingers, yep. And as time passed, my knees, legs would have painful spasms at night too. I tried so hard to have a good night. Epsom salt baths, a variety of pillows, yeah, heated mattress pad and ice. Yeah, done all that. And I would go to bed thinking positive, and the minute my body started to relax, it all kicked in again. Yes, this is exactly what's happening to me every night. It's like you wake up at 1 o'clock and you're like, I pray it's 6 o'clock so I can get up. And you look at the clock and it's 1 o'clock in the morning. You go back to sleep, you wake up, you think, oh, surely it's 6 o'clock now, I can get up. It's 2 o'clock. And you do that all night because you feel so horrible, you just want to get up. I do better when I'm up and moving. I would go to bed thinking positive. Okay. I wish I had some miracle idea or supplement to recommend that helped me, but the shot helped the most. I even had a couple acupuncture sessions. I was feeling pretty good until I went to bed. Yep. My checkup with this pain specialist is 3:31. I'm wondering if I will need a second shot. Well, there you go. I'll continue to pray for Brandon's progress. Well, thank you, Kay. Name is Kay. Thank you, Kay. By the way, I got a shot today. I got a shot. I gave myself a shot in the belly. I'm now getting shots in the belly. What am I getting shots of? Some kind of peptide. What's it called, guys? How do you know that off the top of your head, Logan? I'm getting BP 157. B, what? B? B as in boy. T. I have an earpiece right here. Turn yourself up. I can barely hear you. Maybe my hearing's going. Oh, BPC. BPC. It's got a number with it. Okay. Maybe I should just use some WD-40. Shh. So that's what I got injected with today. I counted on Dr. Bashima and my wife. They figured it all out. Yeah. You see behind every guy, great, successful guys, a couple ladies helping you out, right? So I didn't even ask a lot of questions. I just trust Dr. Bashima and my wife. She checked it out. Dr. Bashima mailed it over, a bunch of syringes. My wife spent the afternoon putting all the little, what it would call, a little vial of this peptide into all these syringes. I guess she's got like 30 or 40 shots ready to go. So all I have to do is pull it out, and I just give myself a shot right in the gut. So I've done that today. I'll be doing that every day. And apparently, and I'm going to get Dr. Bashima on next week about this. Apparently what this does, it's natural to your body, and it tells your body to make something that decreases the inflammation. Remember, this all started for me largely when I couldn't get my Bella Grace for 2 weeks because of the snowstorm, ice storm here, and everything shut down. And I couldn't get my Bella Grace that has that cat's claw, which is the anti-inflammatory. So you got to keep, I told my wife, order up a massive supply of this. If the power goes down, something happens, I can't be without this. So that's when the problem started. So you better get your Bella Grace, I think, melissahousebg.com. But anyway, anywho, ice, lots of ice. Sleep with a huge ice pack, big ice pack, back of the neck, shoulder blade, and then the arm always hurts right here, like someone stabbing with a knife, then the forearm. And I just move that ice pack around all night long and pray that morning comes quickly so I can get up. Because once I get up, get a hot shower, get moving, I'm not too bad. It's the going to bed that's so painful. Your body just, everything just tightens up and just becomes painful. But I am excited about the idea of the peptides. I guess my daughter's done the peptides. Now, there are all kinds of peptides, apparently. I'm doing the one that, and not all are good, by the way, Logan's telling me. So I'm not promoting anything. I don't give medical advice. But apparently this is quite popular, these peptides. But the one I'm taking is apparently all natural. Your body produces it, decreases, and this is going to stimulate anti-inflammatory to help shrink that swelling in the C6 and C7. So very intriguing. I'll bring you more on that later. All right. But in the meantime, melissahousebg.com to get your Bella Grace, melissahousebg.com. Check out all our sponsors. Once you at worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. I wish we had a Dolly cam going tonight. Dolly is over there on her pet bed, sound asleep, surrounded by about 4 toys. She brought 4 toys under her pet bed tonight, and she's sleeping just fine. I will tell you, she does wake up at night and looks over at me like, can you please stop moving and turning and fooling with that ice bag? Then plops her head back down. Then she sits back up and looks at me like she's very irritated. And she doesn't growl, but she'll groan. She goes, like she's very irritated. So even she, I think, is not sleeping very well. So she has to catch up during my broadcast. But other than that, there you go. worldviewtube.com/sponsors. All right. Joining me now is Anni Cyrus. Hello, Anni.
Annan, I am glad you're feeling a little better.
Yeah.
But I went through it for 7 months, if you remember last year.
Lady went through 10 months. You go through 7 months. Boy, you guys are really encouraging. Thank you.
Well, but here's the good news. The moment numbness goes away, it gets much better after that. That's the sign. So the fact that 2 out of 3 fingers are not numb anymore, that's good.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, well, it's amazing. You try to get something out of your eye and your finger can't feel enough to do anything. So it's like, that's no good. Let's go to this finger, So it's crazy. And typing is kind of a pain in the rear end, but there you go. All right. There's light at the end of the tunnel.
Always.
Always.
It could be worse.
Oh, sure.
It could be worse.
Absolutely.
You could be Pete Hegseth right now.
I could be Pete Hegseth. I would never have taken the job. He could have called me up, offered me the job. I would have said no. No. Man. I'll tell you one reason why I'd say no. Can you imagine all the attorney fees and bills after the Democrats take over? It's horrible that it's come to that. It really is. Speaking of national security, here we go. I want your take on this FBI warning about drone swarms from Iran coming off the coast, off the ocean. I don't know. Something says this is a distraction from what the real threat is, which is more likely a Club K cargo missile system I've been warning about for years, which would be really bad, or thousands of drones already inside the country. Forget them flying off of a ship. How about that they're already in country, like Israel did to Iran, Annie?
I will agree with you, though we warned a year and a half ago or so about this, but the timing of announcing this, again, with having zero faith and trust in FBI, the timing tells me that's not something we should be concerned about. Something bigger is about, to happen inside, and they're just putting this out there to cover themselves. Yeah, to later say that's what happened. We told you it's coming.
Yeah, but you're not on the same page. Yeah.
I mean, think about it, Brian. Why would today? First of all, we got to think about this. IRGC at the moment is barely making it to next day. Right now, they don't have the authority they had 2 months ago or even a year ago over Mexico. They don't. They don't have the money. They don't have the weapons. Cartels are not in love with IRGC to die for them. Unless there is money or weapon on the table, they're not going to follow orders. So, again, something is inside. We're about to see something inside, and they're going to blame it on this warning.
And you think the anti-Semitism is bad now? Wait till that happens.
I don't know how to explain every day, Brandon, when I see more anti-Semitism. I just can't comprehend it anymore.
And can you believe the people it comes from? Every day, it's another person in the MAGA world. I just saw a gal that does news, and I saw Naomi Wolf begging her to please back up and not buy the claptrap about the Jews in the synagogues.
Well, what if I told you what you said on your intro? What if I told you that MAGA has not been infiltrated? What if I told you MAGA was set to be what it is today from day one?
I wouldn't be shocked.
The reason I say that, remember, I was a MAGA myself. I had the most gorgeous hat that everybody wanted a copy of. But at some point, I walked away. And that point was, since apparently I have the superpower of seeing things before it happens, it was when I realized the structure has turned from a patriotic movement to a pre-planned setup. The narrative is matching. The dictation of who's going to turn against it is very much organized and scheduled. And this was mid-24, by the way. So I don't think it's been infiltrated. I think from day one, as President Trump himself on his inauguration speech said, it was a great political movement. And it's now taking itself to the next phase, which is for us to think it was infiltrated. But it was set up to destroy the Republicans from within, not the government, not the politicians, the people.
Well, here is a guy named Dugin, Alexander Dugin. I'm going to deal with this a lot more tonight with Courtenay Turner. But here he is. I played this for radio today, and it blew Aaron away. I got to play it for you. You're the one that introduced me to Memory TV. You know Memory.
Memory, yes.
And here they are. Folks, you might have to read the transcript because of his thick accent. But listen to what he's saying. And this guy is now, we have him on video, I'll play it later, recommending Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Jason Hinkle, Alex Jones. By the way, Jason Hinkle, or Jackson Hinkle, I should say. Look at this one. Here he is. Jackson Hinkle interviewed Hamas, and this was his message to one of their leaders. Quote, "You have my full support and support of many Americans. We just love you guys," end quote. And apparently this guy's got millions of followers. And what is he, like the co-founder of the American Communist Party? And
Wait, we actually have an American Communist Party?
Oh, yeah.
Since when did that become legal?
Well, we've had the Communist Party USA for years, but I guess this is another version of it. It's a separate one. This was for younger people, probably. He was actually speaking to a group of some of them overseas. You want to find that, Logan? He was speaking to a bunch of them overseas. I don't know how they let him back in the country or why. But this is who this Dugin fella is. And I want you to hear what Dugin has to say about Islam and his desire to see Islam become united and destroy Israel.
Hey, everybody. In the Shia world and in the Sunni world, just regarded, just contemplated what has happened once with Gaza, second, twice with Lebanon and Hezbollah. Nobody reacted. So that was great wonder. Where is Islamic solidarity? Where is Islamic world? It is just different opportunistic regimes, and nothing as Ummah, nothing as Islamic solidarity, nothing at all. Iran has exchanged some hits, some blows with Israel with zero result. We don't know real result, but it seems that nothing was seriously damaged in Israel, at least. In Iran, we don't know. And only Houthis of Yemen, they demonstrated the real will and the real capacity to stand strong for the case of global Islam. Only small population of brave Houthis who really demonstrated what Islamic warrior spirit is and should be, but nobody else. That was very sad discovery for myself, that I have in great consideration Islamic world. I'm always advocating to create a kind of Islamic civilization state, but I was very, very depressed and disappointed, contemplating and observing such a pitiful reaction from Turkey, from other Islamic countries. Turkey, Sunni, Salafi, they have made a gift. They have made a gift for Israel to overthrowing Assad and getting Shia militia out from Syria. All that was a huge betrayal, huge treason of Islamic cause, and in such proportions that I could not understand anything anymore in the Islamic world. So they are very dispersed, very weak, and very corrupted regimes representing Islamic world, not capable to any kind of solidarity. So everybody has betrayed the Islamic cause for their price to Israel, to the global West. So I am absolutely disappointed in that situation. But so Israel has won. United States have won. The West, globalist, hegemony, anti-Islamic forces on the global scale have won. It seemed they won, and nobody seriously protested. I see the huge humiliation of Muslims. I see very big failure of resistance. If we compare where we were with resistance and where we are with resistance, it is the failure. It's very deep and very sad failure of us. It is not. I don't accuse anybody. I recognize the failure. The defeat is defeat. The failure is the failure. So we should not call, when we have defeat, call it victory. It is not victory, it is defeat. Huge defeat of Islamic world in front of the global collective globalist West, liberal West and Israel. These example of how Islam should be. But how Islam is, it is pitiful. It is depressing, disappointing. It is very weak and very cowardly position. So Salafi could kill innocent people. They could torture them. They could make violence against innocent and helpless women and children and civil population. But when there is the perspective of fight with Israel or with the West, they are like domestic pets. The kittens. So that is absolutely disgusting, I think. So I could not overcome this feeling of global and deep disgusting for the behavior of the mainstream Islamic powers. What we have is absolutely not enough to fight against Israel. Islam will be really power on the global scale when it could resist global West and destroy Israel. Before that, there is no Islam. It is just dispersed groups of some business and political dealers making always some deals with the West. So it is not the real power.
Well, there you go, Annie. And this guy,
what was his name?
This is Alexander Dugin, and he's made great strides into the MAGA world and is calling for what he even calls, and some of his supporters are calling for MAGA communism. MAGA communism. Here's an article right here over at Rare Foundation. Like MAGA communism, Dugin's National Bolshevism presented itself as a more traditional masculine form of communism. This deception has united white supremacists, groups like those by David Duke, Richard Spencer, and more recently Jackson Hinkle and Haz al-Din. And now the author notes, in addition to multipolarity and national Bolshevism, Dugin has also championed other concepts such as the fourth political theory and neo-Euro-Asianism. This is Euro and the Euro-Asian plan, which is basically the revived Roman Empire, I think. A Eurocentric world government. The important thing to remember is that Dugin's political philosophies all advocate for a radical transformation of the so-called world order, with a focus on dismantling the perceived Western dominance or hegemony, also referred to as unipolarity, and creating a new multipolar world, with Russia having a key in shaping Europe and Asia. Now, I want to see what you think of that, first of all, for asking more questions. What are your thoughts? Because this, again, apparently has infiltrated MAGA. And I'm going to get into this more tonight with Courtenay Turner. But what are your thoughts on hearing all this? I mean, he's really hoping the Islamic world will unite and defeat the West and defeat Israel. And stop being kittens. Kittens.
All right, kittens. I will use this opportunity genuinely to plug my book. This man needs to read my book, The Architecture of Jihad. Reason. He understands the bottom line, but he doesn't understand the operation of Muslims, how they get to bottom line. He shouldn't be disappointed Muslims are exactly following the machine of jihad the right way, the way Muhammad did it. You don't go after Israel today. You infiltrate through other 9 forms of jihad to get to the West, and then you use the original jihad of war to wipe Israel off the map. And that's what they've been doing. Look at the infiltration through all sorts of jihad, from financial jihad to political jihad to civilization jihad to mission jihad, immigration jihad. They have infiltrated. They can't go up. There are not enough number of them to go up against Israel today. They have to conquer us first. And when the West is conquered through non-violent jihad, then they will turn around and wipe Israel off the map. The moment he started talking, I genuinely am like, I need his address. I need to send him a copy of my book.
And you realize because this guy is considered like Putin's brain. They've got a 2050 plan. They have a 20.
That was my second thought, though. I thought, is he behind the operation of brainwash and propaganda? Because when I listened further, I realized he knows exactly what he's talking about. He's portraying this failure for us to believe the failure, though it's not a true failure. They're right on a schedule. And as Dr. Bill Warner always have said, one of the reasons Islam sneaks up on you is because they are trained to be patient. That the last half of his talk hit me as, oh, he's behind a propaganda for West to believe that we have defeated Islam. They're kittens and they're cowards and we got nothing to worry about. Exactly. He switched from the bases into propaganda. We haven't defeated them. They do have the victory.
And look at this. MAGA communism. We've talked about that with Trevor before. MAGA communism is a term used to describe a form of communism designed to appeal to the same people who are currently part of the MAGA movement. Mm-hmm. Okay, so your housing is too high. The old people, the boomers have all the money. They got it. They had it too easy, which is baloney. They dealt with 21% interest, mortgage interest. Some of them got sent off to the Korean War, the Vietnam War. But the old Mao's old, the old lies, the old culture, the old values. This has been repackaged now, and it's, as we've talked about in past programs, the war on the boomers, the war on parents, the war on the grandparents. That they're ones that have messed everything up for this younger generation, and now the younger generation thought Trump was going to come in, deal with all of these so-called inequalities, make them more wealthy, give them good jobs, deal with all the illegal immigrants here, and give them housing and make life great. They didn't get it. And so now many of them are talking about the Jews, the blacks, the racism. They're promoting it. They're going against Israel, the anti-Semitism. They're wanting more and more government to deal with people buying too many homes. Oh, there's too many people buying homes for renting. So first of all, that's a lie, okay? It's like 2, 3, 4, 5%, somewhere in there, like 3%. John Stossel did a whole piece on this some time ago. It's not enough groups buying up rental homes to make rental properties. That's not what's affecting the price. Does it at times? People get into bidding wars? Fine. But that's the free market system. You want the government going around picking the winners and the losers and telling you who can and cannot buy property? And if a group of people want to do that, or a family or business people, we live in a free market, for Pete's sake. The issue with the housing is zoning. It is the high cost of all the forms, all the procedures, all the approval, all the planning. It takes years to build a development, years. So you have so much money wrapped up in it before you can even turn the first shovel of dirt, okay? It's too much government. And they think the solution is more government? But this is what they want Trump to do. And so many of them are embracing what is now called MAGA communism. And so if MAGA couldn't do it for us, now what was designed for the MAGA crowd, and that didn't work to their liking, now we want more government involvement and intrusion. And that's going to go all the way down to your tech bros and technocracy, and they're going to be spoon-fed this. And he said the most prominent of these MAGA communist influencers are Jackson Hinkle, and they show some of his screenshots from his own website. MAGA Communism in the Age of Multipolarity with Professor Dugin. I had the great honor of speaking to Professor Alexander Dugin while in Moscow. And there's more people that promote this. It's presented as an antidote to woke communism as promoted by American leftists. However, MAGA communism is not a return to traditional values and an endorsement of limited government as envisioned by America's founding fathers. Rather, Trevor Loudon explains that MAGA communism is a new form of masculine Stalinist communism that's being promoted as an alternative to wokeism. Consider the quote from MAGA communist thought leader, Haz al-Din, quote, "The fertile soil of a communist movement in the U.S. will have its foundation, the same people who are MAGA right now," end quote. So you've got the pansy left, woke communism, which we all despise, Trevor explains, which should be defeated by traditional values, a foundational constitutional republic, just building up the economy, purging the education of wokeism. Instead, MAGA communism offers masculine, Stalinist, non-woke communism. The goal of MAGA communism is all about ultimately sabotaging the MAGA movement, Loudon warns. MAGA communism is simply swapping one form of communism for another. Both scenarios would be disastrous for America if implemented. You want to comment on that, Annie?
I sure do. Let's not forget, you said everything, but also we have this issue of lies about Jews run the world and they have all the money, so we need to, eliminate them. And unfortunately, a lot of Americans believe that. But I want to say something else. Can you put that back up, the screenshot of had an honor to talk to Professor Duke, the screenshot you had? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, the one on the right, do you see the username? Hazaddin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you know who Hazaddin is?
I just know him from reading articles that he's kind of behind this MAGA communist movement.
Yeah, but let's talk about him for a minute because it's important to talk about him. Hazaddin, the last name itself is great, means faith, Islamic faith, Deen, that's what it is, and he's openly aligned with Al Qaeda. He's a Syrian-born, aligned with Al Qaeda, man.
Had you heard of him? Had you heard of him prior to this, or you were hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why. I was listening to you, but I was like, wait, is this Ad-Din that I know? Ad-Din? That's Hazaddin. Yeah, that is him. Yes, he's very known. Well, if we Americanize the report for a second, he's known for his controversial debates. On the debate of, did you notice how Duke constantly talked about Salafis? Because Ad-Din is a Salafi Muslim. So they're pretty much, now I see that they're all in the same bucket. But that guy who had the honor to talk to Duke himself is an issue that should be addressed. Well, I've been trying to address him, but nobody addressed him. So yes, this is again perfect example of red-green axis in front of us, as you said, infiltrating MAGA, or as I say, MAGA was built based on this. Until the right moment comes.
So you're telling me we've got an Al-Qaeda aligned, you say that guy's Al-Qaeda aligned?
He is publicly Al-Qaeda aligned. He became famous for his interviews and debates and articles saying the same thing you just heard from Duke, saying that stop calling Muslims in your streets Muslims. They're not. You're a Muslim if you stand by Al-Qaeda and kill Kafirs.
Okay, so
that's how he became internet sensation.
Can we do a show on him together next week? You grab some clips?
Absolutely.
All right, let's do a show on him next week. So think about this. You've got this Alexander Dugin praising Islam and saying we need to take down the West and Israel, then that the Islamists need to stop being kittens. You got this Al-Qaeda aligned guy you're talking about here. And then we have Tucker Carlson talking about how great Qatar is. He might get a place there to live and praising Islam and Hamas. I think that's just a political organization, isn't it? And so now doesn't this all make sense? And within MAGA, you hardly hear any of them talk about Islam. Hardly any of them report on Islam, but they all have a mouth full of lies about the Jews and the Zionist and the Christian Zionist. Isn't that interesting? And now we find out that MAGA has been infiltrated not only by one of the guys working closely with Putin and the 2050 Russia plan for basically bringing back the old Russian Empire, but we've got a guy that you say is aligned with Al-Qaeda, part of this MAGA communism. It's starting to make sense now why MAGA has turned so pro-Muslim, anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, anti-Christian, and attacking the Christian Bible-believing Zionist. Right?
Yes. But can I say something you have said plenty of time on your program, especially your Sunday? That are they really Christians?
No, of course they're
not. Do they
not.
really understand the Bible? Do they even bother? No. Like, how many of them do you think watches your Sunday evening Bible study, Brian?
No, I don't think most of these MAGA people are. That's why I increasingly don't trust Turning Point USA. I don't trust Jack Posobiec. I don't trust Benny Johnson. I don't trust Alex Jones. I don't trust most of these people.
Exactly. But they prefer, average people out there prefer to follow them because there's more comfort there. There is hopium sold to people, including everything you're just saying, including the fact that we have this combination of most dangerous alliance feeding information into MAGA, and MAGA will cover up for them however they can.
And again, we need to clarify that we're talking about that branch of MAGA, because there's a lot of people that are a part of MAGA or had the hats and the shirts that they agree with us. So I don't know what percentage of this is MAGA, but whatever the percentage it is now certainly confusing even the good part of MAGA. A lot of the good people of MAGA now are completely confused or have joined in on this anti-Semitism and that all the problems of the world are the Jews. It's Israel's fault that we're involved in this. I have a video of this Jackson Hinkle guy. Here he is speaking overseas. Where I don't know where this was. Hang on, we'll figure it out. Here we go.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! I am so honored to be here.
لي الشرف الكبير أن أكون معكم اليوم.
I have never met a more courageous people.
على الإطلاق لم أقابل شجعان مثلكم هنا اليوم.
America and the Zionist entity fears Yemen more than anyone else.
أمريكا والصهيونية والصهاينة يخافون اليمن.
Because the people of Yemen fear nobody but God.
لأن اليمنيين لا يخشون شيئا إلا الله.
I understand that here today
أتفهم إليكم اليوم.
It is Quds Day, and I could think of nowhere else I would rather be than with the free people of Yemen.
وأتشرف وأفخر بأن أكون في يوم القدس هنا في اليمن بجانبكم.
As the United States drops bombs on the people of Yemen and Gaza,
في حين أن الولايات الأمريكية تقصفكم وترمي عليكم بالقنابل والقذائف.
We know that the U.S. and the Zionist entity is waging a war against God.
ونعرف بأن أمريكا والصهيونية زائلة وزائلة.
And we know that anyone who wages a war against God will never be successful.
لأنهم يشنون حربا وفي وجه الله فهم الخاسرون.
Thank you for having me here.
أشكر استقبالكم لي هنا معكم اليوم في هذه اللحظات.
And inshallah one day we will meet in a free Palestine.
وسنلتقي إن شاء الله يوما ما في فلسطين.
All right, I'm guessing that was in Yemen. Is that right, Annie, you think?
It was in Yemen. It was the Courtenay rallies. He was in the capital of Yemen, Sana'a. And then on the screen, you could see the other 5 cities in Yemen that were at the same time marching. And I'm guessing they were listening to him through TV stream in the other cities. But those were when you saw the split, there were the 6 cities of Yemen showing the rallies. But he was at the bottom. Sana'a is the capital of Yemen.
Okay, listen to this one.
I think that is a perfect note to leave off on. So, Dr. Bassem Naim, thank you so much.
Please.
And I just got to say that as an American, I am, of course, appalled by what my government is doing. And the Palestinians and you have my full support and the support of many Americans. The tide is shifting, and we just love you guys.
By the way, we have observed this all the 15.
Okay, and so there he's talking, I think, to one of the leaders of Hamas.
I didn't catch the...
Bassem Naim, N-A-I-M.
Dr. Basman?
Mm-hmm.
He is of Houthi movement.
Jackson Hinkle interviewed Hamas, and this was his message to one of their leaders, Basm. Yeah, he's a Hamas official.
Really?
Served as a minister of health in the first Hania government. Bassem
So
Naim.
this guy is a Houthi and Hamas supporter and a Free Palestine.
I guess.
Hey, MAGA. Wait, what does any of that have to do with Make America Great Again, by the ways?
Nothing. They've been infiltrated. Let's go back to this screenshot. There he is, same guy with Dugin. Dugin is praising and telling everybody they should be listening to Jackson Hinkle, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, and Kim.com.
Huh. Well, I hate to say it, but Brennan, many do.
Yeah, they do.
Many do.
All right, let's keep watching this. Let's do a show next week on Haz al-Din, okay?
Absolutely.
In the meantime, let's switch over to Dominion. The old Dominion University shooting is being investigated as terrorism by the FBI. What do we know about the guy that did this, Logan, so far? He opened fire in the technology building at the Public Research College in Norfolk. 2 people have been injured in a shooting at Virginia's Old Dominion. University left a gunman dead after a swift police response, according to the school. Is this the one where, is this the gunman that was, this is the guy that's a former Army National Guardsman?
Yeah.
Convicted in 2016 for attempting to provide material support to ISIS, naturalized citizen, released in 2024 under Joe Biden. I hope all that accurate is correct. Where's that coming from? Okay. And that former, where's that article from? July 6, 2016 that's a press release on that, I guess. Office of Public. All right. Well, again, it's fluid. Hopefully we're getting all this correct. But yeah, this is it. There you go. Then we turn to the synagogue in Michigan, not too far from Dearborn. What was that dude's story? Does anybody know? Have we figured that out? Oh, Fox is reporting the Old Dominion shooter yelled Allah Akbar.
I am shocked.
Let me play this clip. Is this what I think it says? Here, listen to this, guys. Here we go.
Obviously, the season.
There were students that were in that room that subdued him and rendered him no longer alive. I don't know how else to say it, but they basically were able to terminate the threat.
The Jewish folks beat the living garbage out of the guy and killed him. Did I just hear that right? He wasn't taken out by security guards as we were initially told. The Jewish, no, this is Old Dominion. Sorry, this is Old Dominion, but it's still good. The students said, "No way, buddy boy," and they beat him to death.
How was he deceased?
There were students that were in that room that subdued him and rendered him no longer alive. I don't know how else to say it, but they basically were able to terminate the threat.
So he was not shot?
He was not shot.
He was not shot, but they were able to terminate the threat. He may have been stabbed, we're hearing. From a cadet?
You see, Brannon? See, it's all Jews. They just killed a peaceful man. I know, bad joke, but I'm so fed up with all.
I don't know if those were any Jewish students that
anti-Jew
killed him, because this one
information.
is the Old Dominion. I confused it at first with what happened in New York or in Michigan, but this was Old Dominion. But I don't know if it was Jewish students or not. I don't know.
On the write-up, I saw Jewish
I know,
students.
but I don't know if that write-up is accurate. That guy, I don't know that that's true. New York Post is reporting that hero ROTC cadet
stabbed praised
him
Old Dominion gunman
and brought him down. Here it is, New York Post. Lifesaver. Hero ROTC cadet fatally stabbed ISIS supporting Old Dominion gunman to prevent more carnage. Good deal. Well, let's hope a few others got a few kicks in the head of him while he was down and out and going out. But there you go. I wonder if they're going to make it now knife-free zones. You know, if you didn't have a gun-free zone, that guy could have just pulled out a gun and taken that guy down. But now watch them make it more knife-free zones, for Pete's sake. All right, let's flip over to New York. What do we got on New York, guys? This guy drives a car into a synagogue, right? No, this was in Michigan. Sorry, too many. Michigan. Michigan terrorist attack. He drives a car into the synagogue. There's the footage.
So 2 in Michigan.
No, one
that's
is in Virginia.
never mind.
One
Yeah.
is in Virginia. One is in Michigan.
Michigan.
It was a Jewish school. It was a synagogue with a Jewish school in it. The attacker ran into the synagogue building, then came out and opened fire, what we're being told. He was on fire? He got burned, huh? Oh, his car caught on fire? Is it right? He's being identified as, is that, don't show the picture yet. Is that, I want to verify it another source. Is that him? Identified for being from Dearborn. He looks to be full-on Islamic.
It says law enforcement sources told Fox News that the vehicle used in the attack at a Michigan synagogue today is registered to a naturalized U.S. citizen from Lebanon who lives in Dearborn, Michigan.
Supposedly naturalized citizen from Lebanon that lives in Dearborn, Michigan, Annie.
Isn't that interesting? When was the video you played of Dugin? Do you know when that was released?
The one that was on memory? No.
Yes.
No.
I'm just trying to connect all these you're playing. You know, Lebanon, Hezbollah, Yemen, Houthis, you know. I'm not necessarily saying that was some sort of a call to action. I'm just curious as to if it was. When was that video released? And again, we talked about this. I'm not trying to undermine it, but we knew we're going to have attacks. I don't think this is the first or the last or the biggest. But once and for all, we need to confront them. Didn't FBI about a week ago or a little more than that say they are in the front lines and they're standing by and they're ready for any, you know, a sleeper cell attacks in America? I'm pretty sure Kash Patel himself posted that. saying we are monitoring the situation here as the war continues in Middle East for any sleeper cells or any terrorist attacks. But I'm amazed that in both cases, FBI got there a little late.
Mm-hmm. And wasn't there one
really
last
good
week
job.
in Austin, Texas?
Yeah.
Well, that was Islamic, right, guys?
I'm pretty sure that ended up being Islamic too.
Yeah, the guy, he had the Iranian flag and he said property of Allah on it, right? Yeah.
Yes.
They all start to run
the
together.
t-shirt.
You know, isn't that sad that we can't even keep up with them? They happen so quickly and one after the other, you can hardly separate them. They all start running together.
Yes. And that's the thing. What kind of we are in the front lines and ready to stop it? Like when?
Well,
I'm sure if I start digging some of these names that are being released, we can. I mean, one of them was apparently already a convicted jihadist, right?
Yeah, one of them provided material support to ISIS and got let out.
Mm-hmm. So how did we miss that one? Again, I'm sorry, but to count on FBI to stop any of these, unless it's to their benefit somehow, it's just a wrong bet.
Yep. And by the way, talk about the takeover of MAGA. Listen to Nick here. Listen to this. Nick Fuentes.
Oh gosh.
So I'm rooting for Iran to survive.
Oh.
I'm rooting for Trump to walk away. I'm rooting for deterrence to be reestablished. This is not a war, ironically, that we want to win. This is maybe a war that it's better if we lose. Better if we have a strategic defeat. So I'm rooting for Iran to
survive.
I'm rooting for Trump to walk away to survive.
I don't know why he wants to hang up there, but he's saying I'm rooting for
Trump to Iran to
survive. I don't know why he wants to hang up there, but that's the issue. He's rooting for Iran to survive. This again is a guy that a lot of the MAGA young people are following. You talk about communist MAGA or fascist MAGA or whatever you want to call it. These are the young people that are now flipping to this, right? And wasn't it Tucker Carlson that gave this softball interview to Nick Fuentes?
Yes. Yes, he was. And it is so tragic because, again, I promise you, if I would put a Middle East map in front of Nick Fuentes, he wouldn't be able to point out borders of Iran. But he has an opinion about him winning this war.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, here's Tucker talking about Christianity in Russia.
My main instinct is that the lesson of World War II for some people was white Christian countries are a threat to the world.
100%. Post-war consensus, yes.
And that's just not a fact, actually, at all. That's why they hate Russia. It's probably going to be the only majority white Christian country in the world soon. And they hate it. That is why they hate it.
Yeah, they hate Russia because it's a Christian country. Baloney. We'll get into that more later. But that's really sad. Really sad. But that's where we're going. And it looks like it's really, in my opinion, helping to set up Bible prophecy because you do see Russia in the Bible. You see Iran, Persia, if you will. A lot of the stands. You see so many of these nations that we're dealing with now. But you don't see America. But you certainly see Russia and all these other groups. So Russia is here to stay. I don't see them going anywhere at all. And yet we've been mocked. For years we were saying that Putin wanted to put together a great, powerful Russia once again. And people were mocking us and defending Putin. And people were mocking Trevor Loudon. And it's ridiculous. It turns out nothing's really changed. And that's why we were doing shows on how the fall of the Soviet Union was really kind of a planned collapse. And some of the former KGB officers actually wrote books on that before it happened. I have one of them over in my library. I think it's called Old Lies from New or New Lies from Old. And he's a former KGB guy that came to America and started saying what was going to happen. And he predicted all these things before they happened. And you can go back and look at how correct he was, including the fake collapse. And then we come rushing in with foreign aid and all this technology, dual technology that's supposed to be used for like civilian aircraft, but it ends up being used for military aircraft. They got it over on us with their collapse. Yeah, they were in trouble, but they did a fake collapse. We come rushing in with money and technology. And look at how they're doing today. They're on 5th and 6th generation warfare technology. and we're working to catch up as we have enemies in our own government signing us onto one treaty after another that Russia doesn't follow, and we're behind the 8 ball trying to catch up. I know we talk big and bad, but we're not. We're trying to keep enough munitions on the shelf, for Pete's sake. And Iran has thousands and thousands and thousands of these drones ready to go. So, closing comment on how long you think this is going to draw out, and particularly when you see Iran, I guess, blowing up 2 more oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, at some point, this is going to start impacting the economy. And the question is, as I said last week, is President Trump going to go down as a great hero in the Middle East, or is this going to end up being a big miscalculation? I don't know yet. It's too early. And it all depends on if Russia and China are coming to their aid kind of under the table, if you will. Annie?
Well, what I'm about to say, as always, is going to be very unpopular, but I have to say it. When you go to war, in any level, even in our, personal life, if you're going to, that's why they say pick your battles carefully. When you go to war without a plan, this is the result. Israel went back in to finish what they started during the 12 Days War. But let's face it, Brandon. We went first to back them up, but then we decided to be America and get ahead of ourselves and try to lead this war. If you look at the reports between IDF and CENTCOM, again, this isn't something you have to dig as deep as I do. Just go look up their reports. Israel has been sticking to their plan, their targets, their precision. But look at our end. Last 3 days, Brandon, we are all over the place. We're just dropping bombs. Like, the targets are irrelevant at this point. We are starting to look sloppy in this war. The Strait of Hormuz cannot be shut down. Trevor Loudon has said this. I have said this. Other people have said this. Let them close it. They can't. So when we pay attention to that, instead of properly managing the Strait of Hormuz, we're trying to destroy what shouldn't be destroyed in the Strait of Hormuz because we don't have a plan. And also, unfortunately, we are not relying on Israel's information, though they know that area way better than we do. We're just showing off our military. So the reason I say this is you're right. I can't tell you where this is going to go because we started acting very sloppy. We're showing off. It's like a kind of a show at this point rather than a strategic attack and a plan. And who's leading? If you remember, Brandon, on that very Saturday when we went live, forgive me as I forgot his name, you had a guest who joined us, former military, who also agreed that the first day was absolutely Israel-led war. But then we passed that point. Now we're just all over the place. If we continue this way, it's going to look bad. It's going to result in nothing. We haven't achieved any of our goals, though we take some credit for things that we didn't do. Point is, we either need to quickly have a plan and an end result for this war, or it's going to be a war that we come home without achieving what we need, unless the original goal was to attack and get our quote-unquote moderate leadership in Iran. If that was the original plan, then so be it. Everything we heard earlier was a lie. People are going to choose their own government. We're just trying to stop them from nuclear. All of that was just lies. If those were truth, I have no idea where we're going today. It's all over the place.
Well, keep us posted, Annie. LiveUpToFreedom.com, LiveUpToFreedom.substack.com, LiveUpToFreedom.com, LiveUpToFreedom.substack.com. 2 different pages. You've been off this week. One of our producers out of the control room has been gone as well. People are asking me where you're at. You're good. You're here tonight. We look forward to having you back next week. And we look forward to also doing a program on this dude we talked about a while ago, Al-Adin. Wow, we learned a lot tonight, didn't we, Annie?
We sure did. That's why I love joining you and learning and getting some updates on your end.
We're all learning. You teach me, I teach you. Trevor teaches us. Courtenay Turner's going to teach us. We're all students here, folks. Thank you, Annie.
Thank you, Brandon. Be safe.
You too, my friend. All right, guys, before we bring in Courtenay Turner, do you appreciate all we're doing? Worldviewfoundation.com. I can't say it enough. I got to have your support. Worldviewfoundation.com. So we keep pushing out this programming, bringing you news and information. We're going to go do a long format interview right now with Courtenay. I'm not going to interrupt it with a bunch of commercials. So again, please support what we're doing. Worldviewfoundation.com. Please go to worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Check out the Bella Grace. Check out the new me with the glutathione in it to detox your cells. Some studies show it may remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. We have the Happy Howl dog food. Dolly loves it. 100% human-grade ingredients, no artificial preservatives. Dolly loves it. Pearl, our little white mini schnauzer, loves it. Oh, yeah. You heard me talk about that, didn't you, Dolly? All of that there. Worldview Talk, your satellite phones, your solar generators, your bivvies, so you can use your phone to text through a satellite, even if the cell towers are down, your blankets and hats to knock down the electromagnetic force, the EMP, or EMF, I should say. All of it. Worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com. All right, very important we have your support. You'll find all of these different groups there at worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. A lot of you have been buying this in this month of March, the Bella Grace. So again, join Melissa and I. We've been taking it since December of 2023. We traveled with it out of town last week, along with the Numi, along with the Gatatana. We believe in these products. We take them ourselves each and every day. And I take them often on set, so you know that I'm not making this up. And the proof is in the pudding, you know? The hair growth. My hands are nice and healthy, not cracked and bleeding from all the other problems I had. Haven't had to take a Pepsid since December of 2023 when I got on this. So again, I highly recommend you to check into this with over 100 clinical trials. Then you've got the Bella Melts. The Bella Melts stimulates your body's natural GLP-1. We had a lady that was texting us the other day about how many benefits she was getting from all these products. Blows your mind, the testimonials that we get from people. But I've got my own testimonial. Many of you have yours. We get so many testimonials of how this has made such a huge difference in your health. So again, MelissaHouseBG.com. All right, take a quick break. We'll be back more on Alexander Dugin right after this with Courtenay Turner. Don't go away. Go to worldviewtalk.com. Get your satellite phone like I have, because you know what? China is in on our power grid. That is a matter of proven fact. If you want to have communications with your loved ones, your family, your children, maybe your spouse travels, maybe you have a child away at college, you want communication should the grid go down. That's why you need a satellite phone, worldviewtalk.com. But look what else they have. They also have solar generators. I have one of their solar generators. I have the Delta Echo 400, a solar generator. So I can, of course, charge my satellite phone. I can run my coffee pot. I can run my whole house if I want to. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com, or use that number, 1-866-738-3224. They have very friendly operators that will explain to you their products, but you can explain to them what it is you're desiring to acquire. How much electricity are you wanting to generate with this solar generator? Well, they'll tell you what size you need. Worldviewtalk.com or 1-866-738-3224. Joining me now is Courtenay Turner. Let's talk about several things today. The 250th birthday of America, the UN Centennial, along with Boston Globe Forum. They have an AI government blueprint targeting the subversion of the United States Constitution. We'll get into that. Along with talking about Alexander Dugin. I was looking for someone that could tell me quite a bit more about this individual that seems to be being interviewed and praised by people like Tucker Carlson and many others. He seems like basically a Russian mouthpiece and propagandist from what I can gather, in my opinion. I want to ask someone that is an expert that's really studied him. I've been trying to reach out to Trevor Loudon in the last 2 days to find him. I can't find him. Hopefully Trevor will surface soon. But in the meantime, I found Courtenay knows a lot about him. I asked her, I said, hey, what do you know about this Alexander Dugin guy? She said, actually, quite a bit. I'm writing a book on it. I think she has like 70,000 words or something. I don't know, a lot of words that she's about to release in a book. So I'm glad to have her back. So let's get into all that. Courtenay, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
70,000 words. Did I get that right?
You did get that right.
Wow.
So I've been talking about this thing called Project Russia, and I think people don't quite understand. They think I'm saying like Russian, interference or active measures, which is partially true. However, there's actually a series of books that are called Project Russia. And these books were released between 2005, 2010, and there's about 3 million copies that have circulated, but only the first one has been translated into English. The other 3 are still in Russian, and they have been handed to the heads of states in Russia. So all of the top oligarchs and, the rulers in Russia have read these books. And the central premise of these books is that that Russia needs to become the world leader, and that it should be a world leader theocracy. So the whole world will be ruled by what they call monk princes. And so essentially you're going to have like an Alexander the Great type of character who is Eastern Orthodox, and they believe that he will be setting the moral value, so a moral ethic for the entire world to follow. And they believe that we have to destroy the West in order for them to achieve what, of course, they believe is the better evolution for the world. And, of course, the primary target of the West would be the United States of America. What's fascinating about this is that, if you study the history of active measures, they typically will plant narratives and plant seeds that are, sow disinformation and sow tensions and dialectics. But in this case, they feel that the West is so degraded that all they have to do is enhance the problems that already exist. And some of the things were really fascinating. So they do talk a lot about the media. They don't use specific explicit names. They don't talk about it's not a tactical manuscript. It's more ideological. However, a lot of what we're witnessing today seems to be coming right out of this. And they do say that the media sphere, is particularly the independent media, is a huge vehicle for this operation. They don't call it an operation, but it is an operation. And it looks like Dugin is the primary architect in terms of the execution of this operation. And they also mentioned explicitly by name the Santa Fe Institute, which I thought was just fascinating, because I've written quite extensively about the Santa Fe Institute and how I think it's a huge node, kind of the central linchpin for the new incoming financial monetary system that they're trying to implement, where we all become part of a cybernetic organism. But what they say is that the ethos, the libertarian ethos of the Santa Fe Institute and of libertarianism in general could be a tremendous vehicle to weaken the United States and to destabilize and demoralize any kind of faith in our existing institutions, our existing infrastructure, and in our political system altogether.
So basically what you're telling me is that this guy, and I think as I do a little homework on him, I find out his dad had been a colonel and general in the FSB, which would be the what came after
KGB,
the KGB. Yeah, right. So first there was KGB, then the FSB. That he, in fact, I think we have a picture here of him speaking when he was much younger. Take a look at that, guys. And we find that what he's really trying to do, and I know that Trevor is written on some of this and given interviews on this. And Trevor says that what he's trying to do is turn MAGA against itself and implement a form of MAGA communism.
Yes, I think that's largely true, but it's not just MAGA. Really, this is about if they can infiltrate MAGA, MAGA becomes a shell. So you'll probably recall the term Aufheben culture. The Frankfurt School didn't actually use that explicit term, but it's pretty much what they described. That term did come about later. But for those who aren't familiar, Aufheben is a German word that's oxymoronic. It means to lift up and preserve while simultaneously canceling and tearing it down from within. So essentially you have the culture, you have whatever the label, the container is, but you've hollowed it out from within. And that is essentially what they're trying to do with the MAGA movement. And I think this has been going on for actually quite a long time. There are arguments about whether or not that was the intention all along. I personally actually do think it was. That doesn't mean that there were no genuine MAGA supporters or genuine MAGA movement. But if you recall in the book that I co-wrote with Patrick Wood, that's what we talk about, is how the MAGA movement was infiltrated and how they have used the MAGA movement to execute a plan that's fundamentally diametrically opposed to what MAGA stands for. So yeah, but Dugin's whole philosophy is antithetical to everything American. He is a traditionalist, that's a capital T traditionalist, which is predicated on Julius Evola's work. Now, the common thread there is that Steve Bannon is also a traditionalist, capital T traditionalist. Nick Land, who we've talked about in terms of the Dark Enlightenment, which is also very much infiltrating the MAGA movement, is also a capital T traditionalist. And it's worth noting that Alexander Dugin we have videos of him like literally venerating Aleister Crowley. So he's like an overt Satanist.
Wow. All right, let me go to a quote. I guess Dugin has written a book called Foundations of Geopolitics. Mm-hmm. And in that book, let me just quote from it real quick. Sure. Quote, "It is especially important to introduce geopolitical disorder into the internal American activity." This is a quote from his own book, folks. Tell me if this isn't what's happening. "Encouraging all kinds of separatism and ethnic, social, and racial conflicts. Actively supporting all dissident movements, extremist, racist, and sectarian groups, thus destabilizing internal political processes in the U.S. It would also make sense simultaneously to support isolationist tendencies in American politics," end quote. Now, isn't that exactly what's happening? Look at that. Supporting extremist, racist. Isn't that what we're seeing in MAGA? Some folks are extremely, I would say, extremist. Others that are absolutely promoting racism. And now they're getting into the MAGA movement. And I can think of people like, in my opinion, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owen, Nick Fuentes, all these people that are infiltrating the MAGA movement.
Jack Posobiec.
Who?
Jack Posobiec.
Yeah, who I haven't trusted that guy for so long. He just gives me the creeps.
Mr. Naval Intelligence doesn't ring as most trustworthy.
Yeah, Benny Johnson. Both those guys just give me the creeps. And
Benny Johnson was proven to be part of that Tenet Media operation, which was a Russian operation, right? It was proven that they were funded and in very, very large sums. People like Tim Pool, Lauren Chen, Benny Johnson. So,
and they were all funded by who, Courtenay?
Tenet Media.
What is that?
Which was it was a kind of an outfit of, I think it was actually here in Tennessee, like their outpost anyway. But they were funded by Russia, and it was.
And this is all provable.
That is 100% provable. And they claim, these people like Tim Pool and Benny Johnson, oh, I didn't know. I mean, we were just making lots of money. They just thought their ideas were so important that they were worth like $150,000 an episode.
Let me just stop you right there. Because yesterday I warned. I said, look, guys, I've been doing this 36 years and I've done it the old-fashioned hard way. The old-fashioned and hard way. And you know what that was when I started out? That meant you had to write a book, okay? You had to write a book to show your work, some scholarship, your ideas, your worldview, your values, how you saw that working out in the real world, analyzing other ideas and philosophies and values and worldviews. And you had to have a book, okay? And so when I started out, and I was running a commercial cleaning company, as a living while I was traveling on the weekend doing concerts as a classically trained tenor in Chuck Swindoll's church, D. James Kennedy, all these singing for the Association of Christian Schools International and their national conferences, like all over the country, you know, from California all the way to Boston. And wrote my first book on the New Age movement in 1980, right? And then went on from there to write about 19 books. But I knew right away I had to write a book. And I had to be an expert on something. And I chose to start off on the New Age movement, cosmic humanism, the New Age. And
it's undergirding so much. So that was a good place.
That was exactly. Wasn't that the truth? Providential. Wasn't because I was that smart. It was just providential. But I knew even as a young guy, I have to have an area of expertise. And what really happened is these churches said to me, hey, if you're going to come in and do a concert, sing a few numbers Sunday morning, concert Sunday night, you want to speak to a Sunday school class or two? Do you have a topic you speak on? And I thought, well, maybe that makes me more marketable to have something more than just being a singer. I could actually, and I was already reading Dave Hunt while I was in high school, you know, his book, Mere Christianity, and a bunch of, what was it called? Something Christianity. It's in my library over here, guys. The Seduction of Christianity is what it was called. So I was already reading that stuff in the 80s, and I was very intrigued by all this. So I thought, okay, I'll write a little book on the New Age movement. And that's how my seminar developed. And in that was one section on education, one little section on education. And then all these moms started mailing me, before email, manila envelopes full of all the New Age occultism and their kids' schools and curriculum and workbooks. And pretty soon I learned about this thing called outcome-based education. And then I started learning about Alice Bailey, who hooked right back to the New Age, who was influencing Robert Mueller. And they're doing outcome-based education, higher order thinking skills all over the country. Benjamin Bloom. Pretty soon I had a book on education. And then we're off to the races. All that to say is I then had to travel the country and speak at conferences and stand at a table and sign books and answer questions and take every speaking engagement you could get in order to build a following and credibility and a mailing list of people that want to support what you're doing. And then, of course, we bought a motor coach and we traveled as a family. And it's taken 36 years of busting our backsides, right? And, of course, obviously, God's providence and provision, and we don't want to undermine that.
Sure.
And as I said last night, I see these guys pop up. All of a sudden, they've got millions of followers, and they seem to have unlimited amounts of money. And I said to my audience last night, when I see these guys, I've always said to the guys in the control room, it doesn't work that way. Somebody is elevating these people, whether they come out of, and why are they elevating them? And you see them on Fox News. All of a sudden, this person who's got a little bit of a following on social media is now on Fox News all the time as a guest and an expert. Pretty soon, they're being elevated on this network, this platform, that conference. And it's like, where's their book? Where's one book, much less 2, 3, 4 scholarly books?
Some of them haven't even written articles.
What's that?
Some of them haven't even written articles. Like, they don't write anything.
So there's no scholarship to back these people up. Zero.
Right.
So isn't it interesting? I went on that tirade last night, and I'll tell you something. I have guys in my sphere who have worked very hard to get the degrees, their college degree, their master's, their PhD, to write their doctoral thesis, to write books. Mm-hmm. They work so hard to know their topics and to gain credibility. And they get really frustrated, some of them. And I have to talk to them offline, don't be discouraged. Don't be discouraged. Because all of a sudden they see all these people getting all this attention, all this and they're ripping our stuff off left and right, a lot of them. Just ripping our stuff off left and right.
That pisses me off to no end. To no end. I come from, I went to college, but I don't have a graduate degree. But I literally wrote 2 dissertations in high school. And when I say that, I know people kind of laugh, but literally one was 80 pages, one was 85. I presented before a panel of neuropsychiatrists, mostly out of Columbia Presbyterian. It was on dream analysis. So I did independent studies in philosophy in high school. I come from a background where you cite your work. You give credit to those who have laid the ground before you, because you wouldn't have, no matter how brilliant or how innovative a person is, you're still riding on the shoulders of those who came before you.
100%.
And they paved the way. And so you give credit. But not only that, you do it for your audience out of respect for them, to show them, I'm not telling you what to think. I'm telling you how I derived of my conclusion. You don't have to agree with me, but here's how I came up with these ideas. And so you can go look for yourself. So to leave all of that out is actually to be incredibly disrespectful, in my opinion, to your audience and to undermine them.
100%. Which is why when you read my books, you will notice that I have 500-600 footnotes, right? Because one of the first things you want to do is be honest, right? You want to be intellectually honest. Absolutely. And the way people destroy themselves is by pretending they're something they're not, taking credibility of someone else and using it for themselves without proper credit. And then pretty soon you're plagiarizing. You're all but plagiarizing. And those guys get caught. They get caught. And that's your career's over. And again, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? I don't want people ripping my stuff off. And I can name some national people where my own audience has said, this guy clearly is stealing your stuff because you will say it. And then 2 days later, they say almost verbatim what you just said and put out. And there are national figures that have done. And I know people that gave my book grave influence to key people. And I said their names, you'd know them. 2 or 3 people would say, I was at an event that this person was holding. I went up to them at this rally and I gave them grave influence. And now you can start seeing my work in their presentations. No credit. They don't call. They don't say, hey, we'd like to interview you, because they don't want people knowing where they got their information from. They want to keep you at arm's length. They don't know you. So they can then say, I came up with this on my own. I don't even know that guy. Well, of course you know him. You had him on your show. So they don't want to put you on their show, right? So now what we're proving is there's an operation going on. And you asked the question, why? Why are they elevating these people? And the reason why is because they're useful idiots, I think, that will do what they're told. And I think some of them are compromised. And by the way, when I say some of these people give me the creeps, you ought to look online. And I'm not going to say it here, but look online what some of these people are supposedly what their reputation is, okay? No wonder they give you the creeps when you start reading about them, right? And I don't know what's going on with Turning Point USA, and God bless Charlie Kirk. I'm sorry what happened to him, obviously, but that organization seems like it's been captured, right? And if I could just be honest, and I don't care if I make people mad or not, I think Erica Kirk is her own worst enemy. The way she has behaved, the way she has acted. See, one of the things about our show is I say the things most people think but don't have the guts to say, because I don't care if someone's offended. If you're offended by the fact, then this show's not for you. But Erica Kirk, in my opinion, is her own worst enemy. Absolutely. Going out there, putting the videos that she was doing with reportedly with Charlie after he was deceased, that creepy video. We have a service with him and you got sparklers going off. All of this stuff is just not, people grieve in different ways. Let me tell you something. I die and my wife acts like that. I think and she wouldn't. That would be very disturbing to me. So I don't know what's going on there, and I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but Turning Point USA, I think, was already going in a direction that was concerning to me in the past. And I think some people are trying to help Charlie stay on the right track and get off certain things. But after his passing, I'm like, wait a minute, has this group been captured? And when I see Benny Johnson and Jack Posobiec and these guys running in these circles, I'm like, something is not right here, in my opinion. My theological worldview opinion, something's not right.
I think your intuition is spot on. There are a lot of red flags with Turning Point. John Mappin was a huge funder to Turning Point USA, but started Turning Point UK. He's the one who introduced Candace Owens to her husband. So there's, a whole story there. This isn't like a direct kind of a smoking gun, but there are a lot of questions with Erica Kirk and her mom. Her mom runs a company called E3 Tech. This is provable, verifiable. Everybody can go look it up, but they have contracts with Department of Homeland Security and with the Department of Defense. And in fact, Erica herself has talked about that was the reason she moved from Ohio to Arizona, was because her mom had these government contracts. But if you do a deep deeper dive into this company, what they actually specialize in is something called cultural linguistics, as well as human terrain systems. They call it human terrain studies. Human terrain systems is what Stanley McChrystal wrote his book, Teams of Teams, about. And it is very reminiscent of the
Stanley McChrystal, the military guy?
The military guy, who is actually also on the board, and here's where Project Russia comes into play again. He is also on the board of something called the Trust Foundation, which Jordan Hall was a part of. I've talked quite extensively about Jordan Hall and his affiliations with Game B, but several members of the military are on this Trust Foundation. And when I interviewed Jordan, he actually said that it was originally just supposed to be about journalism, building trust in journalism, but now it's every institution. I can't imagine what could go wrong when the, blueprint of human terrain systems gets deployed through every institution in the United States of America. I would have some questions there, but it does look like what they do is community planning. And I'm not making allegations, but just a question. Wouldn't it be very possible that a company that specializes in community planning, that has access to this kind of technological infrastructure, could be using something like Turning Point, which is a great vehicle for community planning and for data collection, and then of course surveillance would follow from that.
Oh, here, look at this. Here's an article by our friend Amy Meek over at Rare Foundation. We've been following Amy for a long time. And of course, she's doing some great work on Islam and much more. But here's from back in July of 2024. Infiltration alert. Russia's Alexander Dugin's sinister plot to destroy Trump's MAGA movement. And of course, she's interviewing my buddy Trevor Loudon. And here is another quote. In the shocking clip, Dugin declares, not only Ukraine is ruins, but Europe itself is in ruins. And I think it's the last call to rebel, to revolt. I think that in order to reaffirm the European culture, identity, and sovereignty, people of Europe need to riot against your illegitimate powers. You need to start civil war in Europe. If you're part of humanity, let's start rebellion. If you are part of global elite, prepare yourself to die. So, end quote. So here's the question. Is this the kind of people that are fomenting a civil war in America before they go to World War III? And again, we've been saying here for many years, we think that common sense would tell you that if a foreign enemy wants to go to war with you, they would first create a civil war in your country so that your country is in such disarray and your leaders are so distracted that it's hard to deal with the civil war in your country and going to world war with them. So the question is, have Russia and China and Iran, have they been fomenting civil war in America? And yet here we have this clip from this article from the Rare Foundation, an interview with Trevor Loudon, saying he was trying to apparently call for civil war in Europe. Why not America? Why not within MAGA?
Within MAGA, very much so. And another huge part of the piece here is this: he's a Eurasianist, but he's also promoting multipolarity. And this is something you hear from a lot of these quote unquote independent. Okay, we got to define
that term, multipolarity. What do you mean by that?
So this is the idea that instead of having, it's very Orwellian, right? Like Orwell talked about Oceania, which would be what Dugin called the Atlanticist. So Oceania is like the Anglo-American West, right? And then you've got Eurasia, which it does look like Russia is setting up to take over Europe. Putin has already made noise about how they should merge their economic infrastructure and they'd be so powerful.
Well, of course, that would be Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, the whole BRICS system.
Yes, and the Belt and Road Initiative. And then you have China, looks like they're positioned, to take over the global south. But so multipolarity is this idea that you'd have these various power blocks instead of having, right now they say that it's an Atlanticist hegemony. So we're kind of the petrodollar kind of controls most of the world. And they're saying that we're incredibly corrupt and that all the wealth that people have as a result of us it's a false wealth, and that it's a very corrupt and it's unfair to the rest of the world. That's their claim. And so they want it to be, they call it multipolar, but really what multipolarity is advocating for is in fact BRICS, Belt and Road Initiative. It is to have the rise of the East so that you could have, like Oliver Reiser talked about, this clash of the East and West that would result in the world sensorium. So it's also like the 10 Kingdoms, or the Club of Rome's regionalized adaptive globalization map that they had. It was 10 power blocks. But what do those power blocks do? Eventually they converge into the one world government. And that is really what it serves. So, but you hear all of these quote unquote indie, they're not independent, they're indie, I put it in air quotes, journalists and media figures who are talking about how, Russia and China, they're so much more free and we're the oppressors, right? You keep hearing that the evil West is oppressing. And you hear this a lot from like the new rebranded LaRouchians, the Promethean action, who've taken their cute-hearted turn. And when I say cute-hearted, it's actually, it's not to be funny. It's actually a very pointed term because it's reminiscent of Operation Trust. And remember, Operation Trust was a Russian operation to trust the plan. This is when they created a false...
So you're saying that you believe QAnon was likely a Russian disinformation operation?
I do. It's very similar. So I can't prove that. I don't have receipts on it, but I can tell you that it's incredibly similar to Operation Trust. And it serves a Russian agenda. And you're seeing now people like the Promethean Action PAC, who were formerly the LaRouche Action PAC. And
that'd be Lyndon LaRouche?
Yes, they changed their name in 2024.
For those who don't know, Lyndon LaRouche was a guy in the 80s that kept running for president and whatnot.
Yeah. Yes, who was a former Marxist, then he became a Trotskyite, then he became just a kooky conspiracy theorist. I'm not saying that there's no validity to any conspiracy theory, but he went really off the rail. But the primary thing that alerted me to his shenanigans was really, and I don't know if he was truly an asset, although the fact that he hid out in Germany when he thought he was going to be assassinated indicates to me that he might have thought Stasi was going to protect him. Again, I can't prove that, but why was he hiding out in Germany? And that would be Comintern at that time. So just, throwing that out there. But my big alarm bells went off because he has this whole framework. And this is something I talk about in my article on the Happy Birthday America. He had this whole framework that was a Manichaean split between Plato and Aristotle. Now, for audience who are going to say to me, why am I bringing up philosophers from 2,000 years ago? Well, this is the foundation for Western civilization. And I think the most insidious thing that the education system has done is not only to invert religion from the biblical framework, because it is not that they took religion out, they inverted it. But even more insidious, in my opinion, is they deracinated us from our the foundations of Western civilization, which are the Aristotelian Thomistic roots, which were then resurrected through the school of the Scottish common sense realists. And that is the bedrock of the Declaration of Independence, the metaphysics upon which that rests. But these people like Dugin are fundamentally diametrically opposed to our metaphysical foundation. And they are espousing things that are they're planting seeds to create essentially epistemological warfare, to invert our perception of reality. And I get that they truly believe it. I don't think all of them are just, like a used car salesman selling us, things in a shiny wrapper. I think a lot of them actually believe what they're selling. Some of them don't. Some of them are just useful idiots.
And what is it they're selling? Break it down in layman terms. What is it exactly that they're selling? And before you go to what they're selling and you think about that, I want to go to this real quick. Here is the European Commission dividing the world into 10 unions. I've had this for years. That was the old website. The European Commission. I don't even think that URL works anymore, but I had a screenshot of it. Here is the United Nations dividing the world into 10 regions. Here's the Club of Rome dividing the world into 10 regions. And so part of what you're saying is you got guys like Alexander Dugin, who's being promoted by Tucker Carlson and others. And these people are pushing for a Eurasia and Putin's Eurasia, which it seems like a Eurocentric world government, which I think comes right out of the Bible. You already mentioned the 10 regions. The 10 horns, it says in Revelation, are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, meaning at the time John the Revelator was writing, they had not received a kingdom, but they will for a short period of time, and then they will give their power to the Antichrist. And of course, I think to bring that in, Revelation 17, verse 1, you have to have a false dominant church, a global dominant ecumenical church. Revelation 17:1 described as a harlot who sits on many waters, and waters is often described as the Gentile nation. So you got this global false church. Then there's a scene change, and John says, then I was carried away into the wilderness where I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast. Okay, first he sees a harlot, the great harlot, a harlot sitting on the waters, many waters, and then there's a scene change. Now he's not seeing a harlot, he's seeing a woman who's sitting on a scarlet beast. And of course, then in that chapter, Revelation 17:1, the 10 assistants of Antichrist turn, they devour that woman that sits on the many waters, the false dominant church, strip her naked, steal her resources, whatever, she's done, post, because Antichrist is jealous, he wants to worship for himself, and he sets up a new world religion, the worship of himself. So all of that to say, we're seeing the one world economy, we're seeing a one world religion with ecumenical convergence of different worldviews, and we're seeing a one world government, one world religion, one world economy, one world religion, all coming together. And that sets up this idea of a Eurocentric world government, right? And of course, at some point, we got to have an Antichrist and pop up on the world scene. And I'm not looking for the Antichrist as much as I'm looking for the return of the Lord. But the reality is, Russia is not some kind of, quote, Christian nation to be replicated. And yet I got a guy from one of the pro-family groups that was saying a few years ago that Putin is a lion of Christianity. Putin is a lion of Christianity, okay? That's one of the pro-family groups. One of their talk show hosts who they featured so prominently was, and I have the clip, I'll see if I can find it, claiming that Putin was a lion of Christianity. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And yet, here's another clip. Where is this, Logan? Which one is it? Can you play it? Listen to Tucker on Russia, how we need to duplicate Russia.
My main instinct is that the lesson of World War II for some people was white Christian countries are a threat to the world.
100% post-war consensus, yes.
And that's just not a fact, actually, at all. That's why they hate Russia. Yeah. It's probably going to be the only majority white Christian country in the world soon. And they hate it. That is why they hate it, by the way. Let's just stop lying about it. That's why they hate it.
So they hate Russia because it's a great Christian nation? Is that what I just heard, Courtney?
That's what you just heard. And you know what's so ironic about this? So Dugin says that Russia is going to be the new Rome, the third Rome is his phrasing. So
can I just stop right there? Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Because the book of Daniel and Revelation describe a revived Roman Empire, right?
And this does really, I mean, I'm just listening to you talk about the book of Revelation. I'm like, this sounds like Project Russia. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't claim to, make that assertion. However, I will tell you what they think. And, he is very opposed, and so is Project Russia. They are very opposed to Western liberalism, to democracy, of course, to constitutional republics, to communism, fascism. They want a world theocracy rooted in what he calls Christian Heideggerianism. Now, I will just pause there because Heideggerian existentialism is diametrically opposed to the metaphysics of Christianity. So it's an oxymoronic statement. But you have, and this is no disrespect to Eastern Orthodox. I'm not trying to, denigrate anybody's faith or, I believe in free will. People should worship as they, feel fit to do so. But, the origins are very Neoplatonic. I mean, St. Augustine is one of the, pioneers of original church fathers of the Eastern Orthodox tradition, and he was a Neoplatonist. So there are some similarities, and this is not to say that it's Neoplatonic. There are distinct differences. However, there are elements that are very parallel to Neoplatonism that I can see are very useful to a potential bad faith actor who wants to infiltrate. We see the ortho bros, as they call them online, who even, I've got friends who are Eastern Orthodox, and they say their own churches tell them, do not associate with these ortho bros online. line. They are not biblically oriented. They're causing discord with what they actually believe. However, I'm just saying that I can see how those elements could be used by bad faith actors to infiltrate and then subvert. And so they have the veneer of we are Christian. However, when you say you're a Christian Heideggerian, you've already lost all credibility as a Christian in my mind.
And just so the audience understands who we're talking about, George Hegel, who was one of the thought leaders of the Frankfurt School.
Well, this is Heidegger.
Heidegger. Of course, and of course, Heidegger was a Nazi, and we have pictures of him wearing his.
Nazi.
Yeah, we have pictures of him wearing his Nazi uniform, Heidegger, and he taught the idea of community, that we all have to set aside any deep convictions that we have for the sake of the collective.
And this is Project Russia
for group salvation. So, in other words, if you want to save your society or your country or the world, depending on what level you're doing this, there are certain things you're going to have to compromise on to have group consensus on certain values where collectively then we can all save ourselves. And Martin Heidegger, that's who you're referring to now.
That's who Dugin's referring to. That is explicitly who he says Christian Heideggerianism. Heidegger based his philosophy off of Husserl, and he was Husserl was a phenomenologist, and so he's one of the forerunners of the school of existentialism, which is very. This is reductionist to say, but it's basically rebranded Marxism. It's very similar, but it would take a lot to unpack existentialism. But it is fundamentally opposed to the metaphysics of Christianity. And what you just said about the individual versus collectivism, this is explicit in the Project Russia books. They talk, and is of course explicit in Alexander Dugin's verbiage as well. They talk about how the problem with the West is our value of the individual. And so that's what needs to be eradicated. We need to subsume ourselves for the collective. And they claim that they will have a much better moral collective. They want to be ruled by what they call monk prince. And it will be these people who, have the Eastern Orthodox worldview. And they literally want it to be a world theocracy. That is what the books are saying. And they're saying we have to destroy the West in order to do it. And of course, primarily the United States, because that's what stands in the way. And I personally think the reason the United States stands in the way is because although we've been so far deracinated from those roots, those metaphysical, philosophical roots that are, biblically rooted, and I think through the Aristotelian Thomistic tradition that has really been codified. But the Declaration of Independence sealed that in writing. And that is what the Constitution is, a legal document that is supposed to be protecting. It's an extension of. It is protecting those inalienable rights that come from God. If they come from God, they cannot be taken away. They are intrinsic by value of us existing, of us being human. That is what it means to be human. And that is what they're fundamentally opposed to. And that's what we stand in the way of. So we need to get back to that. And we need to start understanding what it is we were founded upon so we can defend it.
So they can take the God-given rights that come from God and give them to the government. That's what they want. And
that is Hegelian.
100%. They want a supranational authority that has all the power. This is what I wrote in my book, The Coming Religious Right, page 231. And you don't need to buy the book. It's like 500 pages. You don't need to buy it. If you're a member of the Vault, it's already a PDF at worldviewtube.com/vault. We have a lower third for that. worldviewtube.com/vault. Here's what I write. Martin Heidegger's existentialism, meaning his idea of subjective truth, and that of Kierkegaard differed in some ways, as did the existentialism of Kierkegaard and Nietzsche. Of course, Nietzsche is the founder of postmodern thought. But there is room for both on the highway of postmodern thinking. Kierkegaard and Nietzsche differed radically, most famously in their approach to religion, Christianity in particular. Kierkegaard was devout, while Nietzsche was a blasphemous atheist, but so too 20th century existentialism, and existentialism thinks subjective truth, moral relativism, would include both religious and atheistic philosophers. Martin Heidegger, that's who he was, a Nazi, promoted deconstructionism in Germany. Deconstructionism, guys, is the idea of tearing down absolute truth, tearing down cultures, borders, language, and I'm sounding like Michael Savage, but language, culture, and values, deconstruct absolute truth, very much in line with Hegelian dialectic, George Hegel, Karl Marx. You deconstruct truth in society and really the God-given institutions, family, government, New Testament church. Heidegger promoted deconstructionism in Germany, and when he joined the Nazi Party, he helped teach the idea of community and collective salvation to the false church in Germany. He believed that through Darwinian evolution, meaning society evolves, morals evolve, law evolves, through Darwinian evolution and eugenics, of course, eugenics for new people would be the idea that we breed a perfect human race, the German people would create the Superman of Nietzsche, this perfect man, and rocket beyond biological evolution to spiritual evolution. That meant Germans needed to embrace this idea collectively so they could all advance on the road of biological and spiritual evolution to ultimate salvation. And of course, this is what we saw going on in the emergent church, the new religious right, as I call them. And now we see this all coming into the MAGA world, to conservatism. Now, isn't that interesting? Because I wrote these books before MAGA, and I was warning them, look, this is in the emergent church. And Rob Bell, and Rob Bell, for those who don't know, was a, quote, pastor, false pastor. And he was pushing all these New Age concepts. He took
like
New
Rob
Age
McCoy,
concepts,
who's with the Turning Point,
and then wrapped them into Christianity. And I said on one of my radio shows, Rob Bell is basically Oprah Winfrey. Okay, he's teaching Oprah Winfrey to the, quote, church, and this was being really embraced at the time in the early 2000s, late 90s, to the 20, 30-somethings. Well, little do we know that Rob Bell would later go on to actually work with Oprah Winfrey. And of course, the Oprah Winfrey promotes Eckhart Tolle, who says that in the beginning, man created God in his own image.
She mainstream new thought. Yeah.
Totally New Age thought, mainstream. And then you see Roma Downey. You guys remember Touched by an Angel, Roma Downey? Now, Roma Downey with her husband, Mark, what was his name? Burnett?
I think Mark Burnett, yeah.
And Logan, look up. Is it Mark Burnett, the guy that was behind Donald Trump's Apprentice?
Yeah, he was.
Okay. And Mark Burnett's married to who? Roma Downey.
Roma Downey, yeah.
Roma Downey's promoting Eckhart Tolle and how she loves, after she drops the kids, and I have this all in video, by the way, how she loves dropping the kids off at school and then popping in her favorite audio tapes to listen to, like Eckhart Tolle, and how I have her on video. Maybe you can find it in the vault, Logan. Roma Downey talking about how God is in creation. Okay, God is in creation. That's pantheism. All is God. Panentheism, God is in all. Pantheism, all is God. Panentheism, God is in all. We all have a spark of divinity. We just need to understand our God consciousness. And the most popular way to do that would be through hypnosis, even drugs. I mean, Marilyn Ferguson, I think, was the one that said that the purpose of LSD in our country was to help people to open up their channels and have a religious experience, right?
Huxley said it too.
Huxley said it too. Huxley said it Huxley said it with
Timothy Leary.
Thank you, Timothy
Leary. They wrote
Leary.
letters back and forth, yeah.
Yes, the brain drugs will open up people to multiple realities. But he said the one obstacle we have was the Christians and the Bible. That's the one obstacle, the Christians and the Bible. But these brain drugs will open up the masses to multiple realities. And we've been stuck. He said we've been stuck with this Christian ideology since the founding fathers. Well, see, this is what you're saying. They got to get away from the idea of the founding fathers, who many of them did not believe in the deity of Christ, the resurrection, the virgin birth, miracles. So some of them differed on that. Others were pretty orthodox, pretty, traditional. But at least they all agreed in the idea that there was a God, there is a moral order, there's a moral law, they're universal, and there's a judgment day. Okay? So now Timothy O'Leary and Huxley are saying, We've been stuck with this since the founding fathers. We got to get away from this. We got to go to multiple realities. The brain drugs, which is very interesting because that's the word pharmakia in the scriptures, witchcraft, tied to what we know today as, is pharmaceuticals. And this is how you then understand your godhood or your deity. Now, you got Roma Downey saying God is in creation, in the nature. I don't know if you found that video in the vault, Logan.
Well, while he's looking
but by the way, let me say this about Downey. Okay. Roma Downey, then goes onto the platform. Are you guys ready for this? I have the video of David Jeremiah, who used to speak for our conferences. Supposed to be one of the the premier Bible teachers in America out of San Diego, and he's got Roma Downey on his church platform. But he's not the only one. So does Jack Graham at Prestonwood Baptist Church. So here I am warning several years ago about this infiltrating through the emergent church. Yep. Then it comes into the mainstream of evangelicalism. And now it is penetrated into the political and the MAGA movement.
That's right. Yeah. I was just going to say, you were talking about Nietzsche being an atheist, but, the end of that quote is he basically says, what festivals of atonement, what sacred games shall we have to invent? So he's essentially saying we have to become the gods, or we have to invent the god. And you hear this coming out of a lot of the techno-optimists and the Tescrial crowd, right? They're saying that there is no god, but we're going to invent him through AI. And this is and they tend to be nihilists, and this is very Nietzschean. But I also wanted to read you this quote from translated from Project Russia. And it says, Russia's main task with respect to America is to facilitate everything that leads to decentralization, isolationism, separatism, and the weakening of federal power. There is no need to invade. We need only to help America destroy himself from within. And this is essentially Dugin's fourth political theory, which was published in 2009. Interestingly enough, that 2009 is when Peter Thiel did that Cato Institute article where he says he no longer sees freedom and democracy as compatible. Not that we're a democracy, we're a constitutional republic, but that was a very pointed argument that he made. But his framework extends globally, rejecting liberalism. That's the first political theory. Communism, he says, is the second, and then fascism, simultaneously proposing instead Dasein, Heidegger's concept of being in the world as civilization, as the foundational political unit. This connection between Evola's warrior aristocracy, so remember I was talking about Evola and his concept, he believes that we should have a warrior aristocracy. That is what Project Russia is advocating for, and of course they are going to erect this new Alexander the Great. And he says, Dugin's spirituality's sovereign Eurasian elite and Project Russia's Prince Monk are not coincidental. They are the same archetype refracted through different cultural vocabulary. The man who rides the tiger, this was one of Evola's books where he talks about the Hindu concept of the Kali Yuga, where we're going to reach this apocalyptic state. That's what Dugin says about capitalism. So does Project Russia. And then
so put that in layman terms. What are they saying?
So in layman terms, they're just saying that they're going to have this world, they call him a prince monk, who's going to be the world leader. They say very much like Alexander the Great, who is a Eastern Orthodox, and that will be the religion for the world, and the world will be a theocracy ruled by Russia.
Which really sounds like they're preparing the way for the Antichrist. Some kind of world.
And in order to do it, they have to destroy the West, but using all the things that, the West already has, and particularly America already has. Their other quote is, this is what I opened my book with, Western man himself destroyed his metaphysical roots. This is what I keep saying. We have been deracinated from our roots by design, and he himself has renounced the concept of truth. The whole postmodern world, right? What remains for us is only to help him not find them again. That is their mission. And that is how I open my book.
So their mission is what again?
Their mission is, so we've been deracinated from our, Western civilization metaphysical roots, right? The Aristotelian Thomistic tradition that was revived through the Scottish common sense realists and codified through the Declaration of Independence. We've been deracinated from that through our education, our media, our culture. And so they're saying the goal is not to, they don't have to do anything. All they have to do is ensure we don't find those roots. So the tree cannot stand, it cannot grow.
So in other words, make sure they don't find biblical Christianity. We don't care if they find occultism, New Age, the cults, whatever, but they cannot be tied in with biblical Christianity. And we're going to go in and we're going to corrupt biblical Christianity so much so that they'll think it is, but it's not. And again, I go back to one of my favorite quotes by the late Vance Havner, who said, the devil's not fighting religion. He's too smart for that. He's producing a counterfeit Christianity so much like the real thing. The good Christians will be afraid to speak out against it for fear they're fighting God. So create a false Christianity. And this is what Dave Hunt wrote in the 1980s. I already referenced his book. In 1980s, he wrote a book called The Seduction of Christianity. And what he was saying is, through guys like Norman Vincent Peale, Robert Schuller, they're creating a false Christianity that is not Christianity at all, which, interestingly enough, not trying to be anti-Trump here, but Mr. Trump himself says his own pastor was Norman Vincent Peale.
Vincent Peale.
Right?
Yeah,
who's into this whole idea of the power of the mind to create reality, which, of course, he influenced. Robert Schuller says, that's who influenced me. Robert Schuller says it. I have the slides to show it. I've proven it. Rick Warren says Robert Schuller is the one that influenced us, my wife and I, Kay and I. And so now you see why Paula White's in on this. And this is not Christianity. And yet the people that are promoting biblical Christianity, listen, folks, myself, Dr. Rob Linstead, Dr. Andy Woods, I could go on and on. Those of us promoting and warning, what happens to us? We get shadow banned, we get deplatformed, we get suppressed. We don't grow by the millions, but notice everyone that's promoting what looks to be like Christianity, and it is not, they have plenty of money and they have millions of followers, and yet the rest of us can barely grow on Facebook, barely grow on X, and all these other social platforms. And you guys think that's all by just coincidence? No, because we are actually the ones trying to prop up biblical Christianity, what is supposed to be the real understanding of the Bible in context, and that is totally against their agenda, even among the, quote, conservative and some of the conservative MAGA superstars. True?
And I will also say that the anti-Semitism is a huge part of this agenda. It is worth noting that the Protocols of the Elders of Zion was proven to be a Russian intelligence operation to destabilize, to sow division, to demoralize, and we are seeing that being revived. I have people every week reach out to me about these Protocols of the Elders of Zion, and I do largely blame Q, again, this Q nonsense movement that I do believe was a psyop, for resurrecting them, what was proven to be a Russian intelligence disinfo operation. And you are seeing it be resurrected, and people believe wholeheartedly in it, and they're using Christianity as a false veneer to espouse so brazenly their hatred for Jews. I mean, I grew up in a time where, racism was not supported. That was and it's not to say that it didn't exist, but even for people who might have been racist, they were discreet about it for the most part in public. Now, if it's against Jews, it's perfectly acceptable, and people can be just bold and say the most really heinous, low-life things, and somehow that's accepted. Not only accepted, but it's elevated in the algorithm. And this is I believe it's part of this Project Russia plan, because you see it from people like Dugin, these Tucker, all of that network. And I think it is to sow the division within America, but of course also really in that MAGA movement, because a lot of them are actual Christians who do not believe in, hatred of anyone, right? You bless and you wish the best even for your enemies. So, but certainly, to espouse this kind of hatred for Jews, there's nothing biblical about it. There's nothing Christian.
And so what you're saying is that part of the goal of these folks with this Russia project is to neuter the West, neuter America by taking down what made us great, which is what Tocqueville said was Christianity. Their churches are packed on Sunday morning. America is great because America is good, and it's represented in their churches and their Bible teaching, right? So along comes the Russia project to say, let's neuter what makes America great. And what rushes in is, look at this. Here it is. David Jeremiah, who used to speak for us, says New Age Roma Downey, her husband, are raising up the cross of Christ. Well, go look at what Roma Downey's teaching. I don't care if they produced a couple films. Go look at what Roma Downey teaches. Here's another one, Jack Graham of the Southern Baptist, who, by the way, just had Erica at his church. Jack Graham thanks New Age Roma Downey for helping get out the message of Jesus. Really, what Jesus, can I ask? And I have the clips of them. These are all video clips in our vault of these characters. So all of this to say is, when you look at all this confusion in Christianity, I don't know why. Is it follow the money? Is it I want to be popular? I want to be in? Oh, look, we have celebrities that love Jesus too. Is it that? Is it, as I said, money? I have no idea. Is it just flat out the snares of the devil? I don't know. But this is how Christianity is being and has been being destroyed in America as a pure influence from the scriptures. And now today it's anything but, by and large, biblical. It is a great number of teachers to say what people's itching ears want to hear. It's an apostasy, a falling away from traditional truth. And America is becoming more and more and more irrelevant and impotent. Now, here's a clip of Roma Downey talking about what I was saying, for those who doubt what her real worldview is. Watch this.
I know for all the years I was untouched by an angel, we had an expression where we would say that coincidence was God's way of remaining anonymous. And I've always loved that. And I love when these things have shown up for me, and I choose to see them as reminders of that we're not, that I'm not alone.
So you continued to be a Catholic and a devout, I would say, devout Catholic.
Yeah, I see such beauty in my faith. Well, I just have a great love and belief in the Lord. So, and I see God in everyone. And in everything, I guess when I'm looking for inspiration myself, I probably find it most in nature and the beauty and magnificence of nature. And in the, I've heard once that you can, the two things that have struck me as profound is that you can see that there are 2 points of view, perhaps, that there is no God, or there is only God. And for me, there is only God. It's like you could see nothing as a miracle, or you can see everything as a miracle, right? It's so that, and then just that the language of God is in the silence, perhaps. And from I was a very young age, through my education, but really through my father's guidance, encouraged to listen to what he called, your God voice, which is the still, quiet voice inside of yourself that what's the right thing to do, that the kind thing to say. And I've always tried to be guided by that.
Mm-hmm. And this is so penetrated evangelicalism. Let me just show you God is in the silence, really. You know what? If you want to know anything about God, it's revealed in his word, okay? It's not going into the silence of the mystics, okay? And seeing God in everyone and everything. And again, I got clips where she's talking about how much she loves listening to Eckhart Tolle, who again, Oprah says, well, my favorite line, and she taught a whole thing with Eckhart on TV. My favorite line in one of your books, Eckert, is man created God in his own image. Okay. Now this has penetrated evangelicalism. Look at this. This is from 2015. Roma Downey reveals her New Age beliefs. This is from our website, 2015. David Jeremiah says, New Age Roma Downey, her husband are raising up the cross of Christ, 2015. David Jeremiah interviews Roma Downey and her husband about their movies. David Jeremiah describes writing for Roma Downey and Burnett's TV series. Why would you do this, folks? Come on. John MacArthur to speak with IFD promoter Rick Warren, Interfaith Dialogue promoter Rick Warren, and mystic Roma Downey. Really? Oh, yeah, folks. Oh, yeah, that's right. 2018. This has so penetrated the evangelical world, and people that you never thought would help do it did it. Okay, it's fact. You can make excuses for it all day long, but you've never caught me on the platform trying to have a religious kumbaya with Roma Downey, okay, or Rick Warren. So this, to drive home the point we're trying to make is, before we let you go, is that this whole concept of this Alexander Dugin and the Russian project is to neuter biblical Christianity and its influence on our constitutional republic that, as one of the leading scholars for the founders was asked, what's a republic? And William Blackstone said, what the divine has ruled on, we don't rule against. That's a constitutional republic. Well, how do you know what the divine has ruled on, ruled in favor of, or ruled against? You study the Bible, right? And so now we have a brand of Christianity that says, now you see this Jimmy, what's his name? Talarico down in Texas, running for the U.S. Senate, but just won the Democrat primary, quoting the Bible left and right, all out of context to justify everything from trans children to abortion. Okay? This is how you bring down America. And no longer is America great because America is not good. And the source is no longer the Bible teaching in their churches, as Tocqueville said. Is that the bottom line here?
Yes, but they are very much like they're amplifying all the degeneracy that is occurring already here. So like you brought up the trans, they're very happy to see us, follow that type of lifestyle and encourage it and support it. They for themselves do not. And I don't think it's because of, some of them, it may be a religious belief system, but it's really because they know it's what makes them strongest, and they know it's what weakens us. So they're promoting all the degeneracy, all the biblical foundations and the metaphysical roots that we are predicated upon, keeping those deracinated. That's what they're amplifying that. They're amplifying what's already in there. And I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but I do want to just say that this is so important because there's so many movements that are aimed directly at subverting America. And we are coming up on the 250th birthday of America. And I do believe that America stands for the free will of humanity. That is that idea, the idea that we were, by our creator, endowed with these unalienable rights, the rights to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. Pursuit of happiness stems from the Aristotelian concept of eudaimonia, which means human flourishing towards virtue. The idea that we have a telos, there's a purpose, and we are wired for virtue. That is why we are endowed with free will. So that is a intrinsic part of what it means to be human. Of course, we may miss the mark. That's what it means to sin. We are fallible. We are flawed. However, we are not. I don't believe in the Hobbesian lie that we're just selfish brutes. We are wired for virtue, and that is intrinsic to civic duty. And what they're doing right now is there's several movements, and they are all kind of coalescing and converging in a very Hegelian fashion towards creating an AI governing state. And there is actually a book that's been put forth by the Boston Global Forum, which is in partnership with the AI World Society, Artificial Intelligence World Society, which is the UN Centennial Vision for the 100-year anniversary of the UN, to have the entire world run by this AI government. And they have a book that the ebook has already come out, but they're doing a book launch on May 1st at the Harvard Loeb house. So they're doing this just in time for the birthday of the United States of America, and it is fundamentally antithetical to everything that America stands for. They are trying to turn us into a cybernetic organism where America is subsumed, and your rights are not intrinsic by nature of you being a human who is a creation of God, Imago Dei. Instead, they will become permissions that can be easily rewritten through a click-wrap agreement and a simple code rewrite. And that is the plan. And so a lot of people are not aware of what's going on, and they're all doing this. So why I say they converge is they do this under the guise of quote unquote democracy. We are not a democracy. They are intentionally trying to use democracy as a marketing ploy to subvert the United States of America. And of course, we have the Hegelian arm of this, which is, the whole world liberty financial, the quote unquote truth dollar, which is erecting the new world financial system. And they're part of using the war devastations as a test bed for these various cities that have already propped up. The Boston Global Forum and the AI World Society already have their test bed in Vietnam. And then the next one slated is Ukraine, and they talk about Ukraine being the central smart city nodes, and of course Gaza as well.
Right. Here's a quick clip. Yep. Here's a quick clip by Dugin. Listen to this, guys. This again, someone Tucker Carlson and many are promoting, and even people inside the MAGA movement. Here we go.
The United States is on the edge of the radical collapse. So that is superpower, hyperpower that is collapsing. That is agony of it. And we need to understand that well. We should not be hypnotized by the real situation in the United States. They are in very, very bad situation. And hence, they radical and extremist actions. So they have the problem with Epstein elite. They have the problem with economy. They have the great problem with the state of the moral United States. This is decaying society in the last stage of decay. So we need to follow that. We need to understand that. We need to study it. We need to have the correct, realistic understanding of what is going on in the United States of America outside of their propaganda. Maybe outside of our own propaganda. So we have to have a very correct, realistic understanding of American society, because from that depends almost everything in the world. So we need to try to reach the people of real MAGA, of the core MAGA, who share with us our general ideological, geopolitical, metaphysical vision of multipolarity. Because the MAGA accepted multipolarity. Trump has betrayed MAGA and has thrown away multipolarity, has declared the war to multipolarity. So, but not MAGA. So we need to follow people like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Alex Jones, Andrew Neapolitano, Larry Johnson, Jackson Hinkle, and great, absolutely great Kim.com that we should invite next time for our conference.
I don't. Kim.com, Alex Jones, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson. Who else did he name in there?
Jackson Hinkle.
Jason Hinkle, who, I mean.
Jackson Hinkle.
I don't know if
total
some of you.
Russian propagandist. Yeah.
Right. I mean, oh, wow. Let's finish this. Here we go.
He is very great. So we need to reach to these non-conformist MAGA people in the United States who have a very similar vision of what are the real priority to save America, to save the world, to save the West, to save the East, and so on. So we have immense amount of our friends in the United States of America. MAGA movement has made a rise of them. They help to them to reappear and to become important influencers, important power inside of American society. Now they are leading anti-Israeli line, and that coincides geopolitically with our vision of things. So that is very important. So, but
oh wow! So again, this guy is considered Putin's brain by some, right?
Yes, which is why I do think that he is executing this Project Russia blueprint. Now, the fact that they haven't translated it into English, I mean, one seems to have made it out, the first one, and it's very hard to get access to. But the heads of states in Russia all have it. So this does seem like it's a Kremlin operation, and it does seem like Dugin is kind of leading the way. I don't think he's the only one, but he's certainly very influential. And so many on the quote unquote right have bought it hook, line, and sinker. And it is this whole, multipolarity, which we see is just code for it's destroy the West and build globalism. I mean, that's basically, I know that's oversimplifying, but that's what they're saying. And that people, it's really astounding to watch. I mean, to see how many people who claim to be conservatives are espousing this and supporting it. I mean, I would think that most people could see through Tucker, people like Tucker and Candace, who honestly just look unhinged to me. I mean, they're not really speaking logic at this point. They does look like just pure propaganda that doesn't even have any kind of coherency. But people are buying into it. It's very strange to watch.
And what are some of his other bullet points? Give me bullet point, layman terms, his worldview. When it comes to Islam, I think he's talked about, we got a clip of him talking about Russia should be giving nuclear weapons to anybody that wants to wage war against the West. We've got that clip. You've seen that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and you heard him. He just talked about being anti-Israel, how important that is geopolitically. It is the same kind of narrative that we always hear, that it's you hear things like that. I think the Ukrainian conflict is very relevant. One of the narratives, and it's always such a tell that this is coming from one of the, Promethean or Larouchian, is that whenever they start attacking NATO, now I'm not saying NATO is without any kind of culpability or, can't be held accountable for any misdoings. However, it's more of a dog whistle to say that the West is the aggressor. The West is the problem. They put all the blame on the CIA. You hear this, you see this with the Epstein files. I found this fascinating. So Epstein is ostensibly a disciple of Robert Maxwell, right? I think that's a very logical claim to make, that he was kind of mentored by and passed the baton to Epstein. Robert Maxwell was proven to be a British and Russian agent. And yet, when you talk about Epstein, they only talk about Mossad and maybe CIA. You never hear him talk about, do you know how many intelligence agencies there are in the world? And I would argue the Russians, the KGB, and now the SFB are some of the best at active measures and destabilization. The reason Yuri Bezmenov was able to so accurately illustrate how the Color Revolution operation works is because he was a former KGB. He knew the blueprint that was being executed. And unfortunately, I feel like so few have learned the lesson, because it's exactly what is happening. They have to destroy our culture from within. And that is Dugin's mission. It is to deracinate us from everything that makes Western civilization great, and that has built the freedom and stood for the free will of humanity. It is what has to be eradicated so that the collective can survive.
And of course, this isn't new. That's what the Frankfurt School came here in the 1929, 1930 at the invitation of John Dewey, the father of modern education, the guy that signed the Humanist Manifesto, the guy who went to Russia in the 1920s, late 20s, early 30s, to teach the Karl Marx, or learn the Karl Marx way of education, then came back to America and Columbia University to teach it, who worked with Roger Baldwin, the communist that started the American Civil Liberties Union. That was the goal of the Frankfurt School, was a destruction of the masculine male, patriotism, a patriarchal society, and then to infiltrate education and media to implement political correctness, which is really cultural Marxism. And so thereby to change the culture from within, the long march through the institutions by deconstructing sexuality. Remember one of their guys, wrote a book on eros, sexuality.
Yep.
You've got
Eros and civilization.
Thank you. And that, of course, came from the guy that talked about the fact that the old way of revolution, Herbert Marcuse wrote that. The old way of revolution is old-fashioned. The new way is a diffused and dispensed disintegration of the system, right? So that's what they've done. This is really not new. It's just now penetrated the media, social media, and some of the biggest, quote, churches, church leaders, denominations, and podcasters in America. And here is Tucker with Alexander Dugin talking about why Putin is hated so much. Listen.
80 odd years of defending Russia. They hated Russia. What was that? Why the change?
I think that first of all, Putin is traditional leader. So Putin, when he came to power, from the very beginning, he started to extract our country, the Russia, from the global influence. So he started to contradict to global progressist agenda. And these people who supported Soviet Union, they were progressists. And they are now progressists. So they have felt that now they were dealing with someone who doesn't share this progressist agenda and who tried, and with success, to restore traditional values, sovereignty of the state, Christianity, traditional family. That wasn't evident from the beginning, from outside. But when Putin insisted more and more on this traditional agenda, I would say, on the particularity and speciality of the Russian civilization as some special type of world vision that had and has now very little similarities with the progressist ideals. So I think that they have discovered, they have identified in Putin precisely what Putin is. So he is a kind of leader, political leader, defending traditional values. So only recently, 1 year ago, Putin has made a decree of the political defense of traditional values. That was turning point, I would say. But observers from the progressive camp in the West, I think they have understood that from the beginning of his rule correctly. So this hatred is not just casual, something casual or some mood. It is not.
It's not casual. It's very serious.
So it's metaphysical. So if your main task and main goal is to destroy traditional value, traditional family, traditional states, traditional relations, traditional beliefs, and someone on that with the nuclear weapon, that is not smallest, the last but not least argument. Someone with nuclear weapon to stand strong, defending traditional value, you are going to abolish. I think they have some basis for this Russophobia and the hatred for Putin. So it is not just by the chance. It's not some irrational change from Sovietophilia to Russia phobia. It's something deeper, I would say. It's my
Wow. So Putin is he is the lion of Christianity, as one of the American Family Radio Network, AFA, broadcasters said several years ago, and I still have it on video. Really, the lion of Christianity. Sounds like sounds like Dugin, right? This guy is standing up for traditional values. You know what? Just because you don't want the LGBTQ agenda in your country because you realize it destroys the fabric of your nationalistic state and family and reproduction doesn't make you a lion of Christianity, okay? And by the way, go read what's really taught in the Russian Orthodox churches and see how well it lines up with the scriptures, folks, number one. But this is pure propaganda. Now America is the enemy, anti-Christian, godless, and Putin is the example of what real Christianity, real traditional family values should be. I mean, as you say, this has all been turned upside down on his head. But in part, we have become a nation that has rejected God, that has embraced all kinds of things we shouldn't be embracing. But the reality is, those of us that keep trying to teach and go back to the Bible are the ones being attacked as Islamophobic or as xenophobic or whatever it is. And the ones that are elevating this whole idea of ecumenicalism, interfaith dialogue, deconstructing absolute truth, those are the ones that are getting the money, the attention, and the following. So we're, in some sense, we're really fighting an uphill battle because the game has been rigged against the people that are really telling the truth.
Yes, and it is an absolute inversion. I do think it looks very much like propaganda. But I would also say, when he says traditionalist, I really think that's a kind of an esoteric nod to the initiated. He's talking about capital T traditionalist, which does stem from Julius Evola and prior to that, Guinan. And it's this idea, as I was saying, that the Hindu term Kali Yuga, like we're going to reach this, collapse, this, apocalyptic state, and for Dugin that the West is doomed to reach this state. This is, of course, what Nick Land believes as well. Capitalism is going to implode us, and this is inevitable. And so, of course, Dugin believes that Russia will be the Ketchikan that will save us. That's the whole idea, is that we are so destructive. And what they're saying is, as you said, yes, it's true. We have fallen. There's a lot of degeneracy in the United States. We're certainly flawed, and it has become increasingly more degenerate. However, they're exacerbating it. That's what they're saying, that in this Project Russia blueprint. And I think it's exactly what Dugin is there to create, that schism, and to sow the division, sow the chaos and the disorder, to destabilize, which is the step before the demoralization. Of course, we get to the new normal, which they're thinking will be Russia as this world theocratic ruling empire. But they're saying that all the things that we already do that are in their eyes degenerate are the things we need to exacerbate. And really what we need to get rid of is this whole value of the individual. And they value the syncretic, collective, they talk about in Project Russia, and the one that was translated in English, they actually talk about how it has to be like, you can't have individuals. It's like they need the rulers of Russia to be people who see it as one family. We have to take care of the whole family. We are all interconnected. This isn't really any different than these New Age concepts, this Neoplatonic concept, this what they're doing with the AI world society to literally create a hive mind. It's all very similar.
It's the harmonic convergence of the New Age, the power of the mind to create reality. It's the same thing as shamanism, word of faith, the power of your mind to create reality. Then just put all the power and energy of the world's minds thinking toward the same thing, like the old bumper sticker from the 80s, visualize world peace. Right? So it's that harmonic convergence. Look at this last thing here. Russian philosopher Alexander Dugin. The Islamic world's response to the Gaza war was pathetic, a defeat, not a victory. Islam will only become a true global power when it can destroy Israel. Huh. So let me ask you this in closing. I think I've said that about 3 times.
Sorry.
The tech bros. Doesn't this line up a lot with dark MAGA and the tech bros?
Yep. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And you see a lot of the anti-Semitism coming from them as well. That whole Dark Enlightenment movement, they're very aligned with the Theo Bros. And I would argue the Theo Bros are very much converging with this. That's why it all looks like a Russian operation, because the narratives are just so similar. And regardless of whether or not they've become, Tenet Media is an example of people who are explicitly funded. We know that was a Russian funded operation. However, we don't need to have direct receipts from all of this. We can see what the narratives serve. So look at the operational result, the ramifications of what it is they're doing. But yes, the tech bros absolutely tie into this. As I had mentioned, Nick Land is a really great example. He believes in this whole concept of, coming from Deleuze and Guattari, this idea of extraterritorialism, that we are, his accelerationist philosophy, that capitalism is this alien force and it's doomed to reach an apocalyptic state, and we should use the technology to help it reach it. So, of course, they diverge in that the tech bros tend to be much more nihilistic, but they still want to erect their God. It's the AI God is going to be the world God, the world leader, and it is also subsuming the individual. Nick Land's philosophy is actually quite Kabbalistic and uses the Kabbalistic framework as a model for something he calls retro causality. He actually believes the present can influence the past as opposed to, a linear chronological, order of time. He believes we can retroactively shape it. And he uses very much a Kabbalistic model, which is then imposed onto technology. And so that's his whole concept of homo autocatalyticus. So all this to say, but of course, and Elon Musk now, maybe he defends the Jews and Zionism, but really if you look at his history, he's just like his grandfather. His grandfather flipped sides, Josh Haldeman, when it was expedient, when it was, politically efficient to do so. It not because of a true, certainly not a biblical belief system, and not even his own kind of inner morality, I would argue. It really seems to be based on efficiency, which is the whole model of technocracy. And so I guess, and it very much now, Project Russia is different because it's not a technological infrastructure. However, Russia is pretty much a technocracy already. So, there's some questions there. But the model that what they are doing to subvert America feeds right into the hands of those who are trying to create these network states that will be the smart villages creating the, world brain.
Yeah,
and,
so your Curtis Yarvin, Peter Thiel, corporations will end up ruling the world, a small collection of people, which I call communitarianism, big government, big business merging together. And of course, in many regards, Putin himself is a communitarian. Big government, big business. I mean, these oligarchs that they have over there with their, massive, massive yachts that are just like, whoa. I mean, these are guys that have basically, I think, raped the state there in Israel with his little team of oligarchs, big government, big business. So Putin in many regards is in lockstep with a lot of what's going on over here. And that might be because in part, they're all following the same playbook, which I think in the end does lead us to the 10 regions and a world leader whose power is given to him by 10 world leaders. And he then becomes a world leader himself, the ultimate world leader. So it all is tying together. I know it can get confusing at times, folks. The words get big. We try to break it all down.
Sorry.
But no, you're fine. But there is a underlining worldview and philosophy here. And sadly, again, this has penetrated mainstream evangelicalism, by the way. The emergent church in the late 90s, early 2000s, then mainstream evangelicalism, because they didn't want to lose the nickels and noses. They didn't want to lose the nickels and the noses of their congregation to the more hip, experimental, postmodern church with Christian yoga and lighting candles and incense and all the other spiritual emergent garbage. So what happened? The supposed evangelical churches started taking a little bit of their worldview, their plank, and putting it to theirs so they can make sure that they're appealing to people's feelings and emotions and experiences. And all of this, of course, has trickled down and led us to largely an impotent church in America, a false church in America, who now goes right along with a cultural and political and economic system, all thinking it's liberty and freedom and make America great again. And I don't even think the guy at the top, President Trump, understands anything we've described tonight. I don't think he understands any of this. He's just being led down the primrose path. And sadly, that's because President Trump largely is not a reader. I don't think Donald Trump is a guy that reads, right? He's a guy that wants it on bullet points and keeps moving. Give me one little card, let's keep moving. And you're never going to and this is why Bill Clinton was an insatiable reader. JFK was known for reading at breakfast, dinner, always reading, okay? Go and listen to the speeches and read the papers and books of guys, whether you agree with them politically or not.
Right.
They were readers. So at least they knew what they believed. and where they were going. And then you go look at the people that made it to the presidency who were not readers, and then you understand why it is they're led down the primrose path. And the same is true with your local, state, and federal elected officials, as well as your pastor. Most pastors are not readers. Most so-called pastors, I'm sorry, they're idiots. They're hirelings. They're stupid as a box of rocks. They get their sermons off online. They get their sermons written by a team. I know one guy reportedly has 17 researchers, and you wonder why he reads every sermon. He preaches his sermons like this, occasionally looking up and sounding profound, and then it's back down to this. I'm like, dude, you spent all week studying, and you got to read every darn word? What is wrong with you? Well, I know it's not your words, most of it. You got researchers. You're dumb as a box of rocks. You have ghostwriters, your speeches, your sermons are written. And then you wonder why the church in America is so impotent, because they don't have knowledge. And my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, acquisition of truth, which comes from the Bible, but also from understanding the worldview war, the spiritual war. They don't get this. And so they're led down the path by the guy that comes in who's a consultant to tell them how to grow their church. And pretty soon, shocker, you got Roma Downey on the church platform. You're pushing the emergent church. And now the very power and dynamite of the Holy Spirit that should be energizing us and charging us and helping us to be discerning has been now completely removed. Ichabod. The glory has departed. And you wonder why the church in America has almost zero cultural influence anymore. And folks, this was not by mistake. It was a long march through the institutions to go after the seminaries, the World Council of Churches, the Federal Council of Churches, Walter Rauschenbusch, Harry the Red Ward. This was a long march to neuter the church in America. And once they did that, they knew they could capture all the other power institutions and bring America down. And now you're seeing it. And today we've explained to you one of the sources is Putin's, brain, Putin's ideological architect, Dugin.
This is a quote from Project Russia, translated into English. We do not need to create enemies of the West. They already exist. We only need to give them a voice, a platform, and the feeling that they are many. And I think that's what Putin's doing.
Giving them a platform.
And his acolytes. Yeah.
Give them a platform. Make sure they have plenty of followers on social media, plenty of money, plenty of PR, and let them just keep pushing their claptrap.
That's right. Yeah.
Here you go. Her book with Patrick Wood, The Final Betrayal. And what is your website, Courtney?
So probably the best place to go is Courtenay.show. So I spell my name like Courtenay, COURTENAY.show. That's my link tree, but then you'll see my Substack. And I know we didn't have time to get to it because this was so dense, but I did just write an article about their big plans for the birthday of America, the 250th anniversary of this beautiful nation, which I think is built on, really just very sacred principles that they want to completely destroy. So I did write an article on that, so check that out. And my links to my Substack, my podcast, and everything will be on that. So
as always, Courtney, we appreciate you and your work and helping us to understand the philosophies and ideas that are ruling the day and cheating many people. Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you.
Guys, do you appreciate what we're doing here? We didn't take one commercial break. And again, I know we use a lot of big words. We try to slow down. We try to break it down, because we don't want to talk over people's heads. We're not looking to sound intellectual. That you've got to get the hay down on, you got to get the hay out of the loft and down on the ground where the sheep can get to it. I remember Ron Carlson used to quote that. Our job is to take the complex and try to make it very understandable and applicable for lay people. So we work hard to do that. A lot of big words get used. We try to stop and define them. We got to get that hay out of the loft onto the ground for the sheep to eat and consume and to understand so they can fight back and not be cheated by the philosophies of men that are not according to Christ. And so that's what we're doing. But we did take one commercial break. And folks, we got to have the resources to keep the network going. So if you appreciate all the work we do, all the efforts, would you please, I really need you to go to worldviewfoundation.com. I know there are some of you watching. You can afford $10 a month. You can afford $20 a month. I don't know why you don't contribute $10 a month, $20 a month. You come in here every day, every night, and you eat at this buffet that we lay out for you, but you never, ever contribute. Some of you can't, and we understand. Others, you're seekers. You may even be skeptics or critics. You may even not like us, but you listen because you're like, I want to understand what this Christianity and biblical worldview is all about. Well, if we had to put it all behind a paywall, you wouldn't be watching or listening. And you know what? We have many, many skeptics and critics who now have become some of our biggest supporters. Yeah, they heard the gospel, they got saved, and now they are some of the biggest evangelists preaching the truth, the real gospel. They're teaching people a biblical worldview. They're exposing the lies that they once believed. Now, if we had this behind a paywall, they would have never heard this. We have so many remarkable stories over the years of people that have heard the truth and been set free. But if it was behind a paywall, they would have never heard it because they're not going to pay us to get behind a paywall to hear us when they don't even like us. And some of them wouldn't even know we exist. It's because we do push this all over the place, not only as a full program, but as broken up clips on social media that people do find us. And then they do start listening. So this is ministry. We're putting out education and ministry programming, which means we need to put it out for free. That's what broadcasting is like, right? You broadcast the seed. When you go to plant a crop, what do? You prepare the soil, and then you broadcast the seed. You pick up a handful of seed, and you throw it out there, and you broadcast it, right? And that's what we're doing. We're broadcasting seeds of truth. And we don't know what kind of soil it's going to land on. We don't know what will come of it. Some of the seed will die, falls on rocky soil. Some of the seed will fall on good soil, and it will take root and spring forth a plant and fruit. But it's our job just to broadcast the truth, to spread that seed, plant seeds. So we do it day in, we do it day out, but we have to have supporters. And if you cannot financially afford to support us, I don't want you feeling guilty. I don't want you feeling ashamed. You can still support us by praying for us. You can still support us by going to worldviewstore.com and getting the free pack of business cards. Get the free pack of business cards, pass them out to your family and friends. These are two ways you can support us that are very powerful. But if you are able to support us financially and you're not, would you please do so right now? Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Look, we're not here to be popular. We're here to put out truth and be faithful. We're not perfect. We have feet of clay. We're not perfect. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. We have not arrived. We have not reached a state of perfection. No, we are still in the sanctification process, ongoing faithfulness and obedience. Romans 6, dying to self every day. So let no one think that we have all the answers or that we have achieved some kind of pure perfection and holiness. No, holiness is separation from sin. We're still battling the old man and the new mind, right? So we're not trying to be pious. We're not trying to be elitist, spiritual elitist, saying we have all the answers, we're perfect. When we point out what other people are doing as though somehow we're perfect. No, we're not. But we are not promoting false teaching and false teachers. This to me is one of the biggest things. We all have our issues. We all have our areas of the flesh we have to die to daily. No one has reached perfection yet. That will happen in our new bodies. We get our glorified bodies. We get out of this sin-filled world. We're separated from sin. And I'm looking forward to that day, aren't you? But one thing I look at to see is how well are we doing is, are we preaching a true, uncompromised gospel? Yes, we are. We're teaching what you see in the Bible. Are we promoting false teachers? Are we platforming false teachers? No, we're not. So when we point out what other people are doing in the evangelical world, as we did tonight, we're not doing that from a standpoint of haughtiness or self-righteousness. We're trying to do it from a standpoint of, hey, we're not perfect. We're not saying we are. But we do understand what our calling and our mandate is, and it's to have nothing to do with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose it. Ephesians 5:11. We're also told in the book of Acts to be aware of the men that have risen from within to draw away the disciples after themselves. We're also told in 2 Corinthians 6:14 through 17, don't mix the things of God with the things of Satan. It's really the Great Commission. Proclaiming the gospel and then making disciples, teaching the new believers how to live, how to think. How should we live in this world according to the Bible? And that's what we do each day. This is a ministry. This is a ministry broadcast. Yes, we're news. We talk about law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, national security, borders. But at the end of the day, we are a Christian worldview network, trying to help people navigate through this world, fulfilling the Great Commission. And there are many who have been intrigued by what we teach. Just as Paul received 3 responses on Mars Hill. Some believed and were converted. Others said, I don't want to hear this, and they walked away. And others said, this is very intriguing. Can we hear more at a later time? I'm not fully convinced, but I am intrigued. We'll receive the same 3 responses. You will receive the same 3 responses when you teach and proclaim and instruct in truth. But folks, people are not going to hear that truth if it's isolated behind a paywall. We get so many emails from people who say, I stumbled on you on YouTube. I stumbled upon you on X. I stumbled upon you on Facebook. I wish I'd found this broadcast network years ago. Well, folks, if this was all behind a paywall, they wouldn't find any of it. And that's where our foundation comes in. That's where our foundation comes in and says, let's use this as broadcast ministry to reach the lost, but then also to edify and equip and encourage the believers. So, if you appreciate what we're doing, we got to have your support. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com, and you'll also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. So thank you for that. All right, guys, that's our broadcast for tonight. I had to take off a couple weeks because I had to do some traveling and spend a little time with Melissa, celebrating our 35th wedding anniversary. But I will be back, Lord willing, Sunday night, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern Standard, as I'm teaching through the book of Daniel. We'll finish up Daniel chapter 2, Lord willing, Sunday night. Feels like Friday night to me for some reason, but it's not. I still have one more day to go. But anyway, look at all the great things we do together through your support. Worldviewfoundation.com. May God save America. Take care.